is asked that we consent items 2 through 6. You're okay with that?
Actually, that's fine, yeah.
They're overnight parking districts.
I just have a question on 6.
Okay, you want to hold that one? Okay.
Just one thing is, it's $1 million, and whether the new council person agrees with it. I mean, or is this by contract?
I don't know.
That's all I was going to ask.
Okay.
Is this discretionary or mandated?
All right. So we'll just hold 6 for a couple of questions. So we'll do 2, 3, 4, and 5, Mr. Labange, and then we'll go back to item number 1. George, come on up. So, George, you want to continue on in your role as member of our Transportation Commission. Thank you for the last, because you've served almost 4 years now. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Yeah. And if you'd like to say a few words before we pepper you with questions.
Well, all I want to do is thank the city for giving me an opportunity to be of service to the city and the community and to help implement the goals of the Department of Transportation. And I might add that during my term on the commission, I've been very favorably impressed with the caliber and the expertise and the dedication of the staff members. They do a fine job, and particularly under constraints of a tight budget, I think they're to be commended for all the efforts they're putting forth.
Great, and it was perfect timing as Rita walks in. I know that they've developed a very good relationship with the commission and supportive in that way as well. I just, again, I know that your experience in the San Fernando Valley and serving this commission has been very helpful, and you have communicated with me when there's been issues or problems. I think it continues to be a struggle as to the authority under the commission, and something that as we go forward, I think in looking at charter amendments in the future, I am for having, really looking at how we make sure that the Transportation Commission has some more authority in that way. That's my own perspective as leaving as chair of transportation. I do think the commission can serve an important role on some other items other than those that are outlined currently in the charter.
And I might add that we have some very capable people on the commission. We've had recent new commissioners appointed that I think will be of vital importance to future growth of the commission's activities.
Great. Thank you, George. Mr. Parks, do you have any?
No, I just want to say thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Okay. And with that, we will go ahead and support your reappointment to the Transportation Commission. And thank you for being here today, George.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. That will be approved.
One last question for you.
First question.
In your 5 years, have you ever met with the 4 years with the Planning Commission and Transportation Committee ever meet together?
No, unfortunately, we haven't. I think that would be a good idea. We discussed it. One time we met with the Harbor Commission.
Friday.
But I think we should interface because the two activities are so interrelated.
Good.
It would make a lot of
Maria,
sense.
from the CLA, will you remind me of that so I can send a note to everybody to make sure that that happens?
Oh.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks for
quite
your
welcome.
service.
Then we'll go to item number 6. Item number 6.
We need to hold it.
Anyone from the department here? In reading, okay,
John,
planning.
can John answer the question?
I mean, what it sounds like it says here, it's saying for the transfer of funds from the mitigation fund to the Century City TMO that will determine how they will use those funds. Is that correct, Madam?
Right.
Do we need anyone?
We're waiting for DOT staff. Maybe we can hold it for a minute.
We'll hold item number 6 then. And I think we wanted to, there was a request to... Item 10? Yeah, item number 10 to go, and then we'll go to the other items before... I'm sorry? There's a card. There is a card.
For item number 10, is that, okay, item number 10 is the CAO report and DOT2 report relative to the potential new parking meters.
Yeah.
And Damien, where's Damien? Damien, you can come on up too. Item number 10, the parking meters. Okay. Oh, there's more of you than I thought. Okay, Damon, do you want to wait till they speak, or do you want to speak before
My
that?
comments are pretty general.
Okay, we'll let you speak, and then they'll go ahead and sit down. Go ahead.
I imagine that as this moves on and gets more publicity, you're probably going to get some feedback from people that don't like to pay for parking, and so I'm just encouraging you that we all know there's a high cost of free parking. There's been books written about it. We've talked about it here before, so I would be willing to bet that the majority of the people in this room, if you polled them, would have no problem with parking meters going up and having rates that are more equitable than some of the, quarter an hour rates that we see around the city. So just let you know there is a constituency out there that supports having people pay their fair share when it comes to car parking.
And understands the connection between
Parking
and transportation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. Okay. All right. Who's going to start? Thanks, Damien.
Good afternoon, council members. Janice Chang, Office of the CAO. This report is basically a report from the Department of Transportation. A question was proposed during the 2009-10 budget deliberations about potential parking meters in new areas in terms of where new revenue could possibly be generated by putting new meters in certain areas, and DOT provided a report listing some of those areas that they thought would be ideal or were in their list to install these new meters. And I'll let them explain the report to you.
Good afternoon, Amir Sadati, Assistant General Manager. Good afternoon. And yes, this was a report back as part of the budget discussions, and there are areas, and Dan Mitchell can get into the specifics of them, but roughly it's about 1,300 or so, 1,350 meters that could go into different areas of the city that had been researched prior and were kind of on a waiting list. The challenge here is, unfortunately, right now with the budget, monies for new capital expenditures have been taken out. I think partly mainly because of the study of the public-private partnership. So at this point, this is a report of where we possibly could have meters, but we don't have the monies right now to go ahead and install these meters unless there's more action to be made from the SPRF. But as of right now, we don't have that opportunity. And also, I think it's important for the council, and especially Mr. Rosendahl, as you always talk about the gold in the gutter, as us going forward, and there will be some preliminary expenditures, and the revenue will come in. But at the same time, I'd just like to make the pitch that our meter technician staff are understaffed by about 17–18%. So I do have that vacancy. And if you're talking really what's the fastest way to catch or get the additional revenues for next fiscal year would be the ability to get those positions filled somehow and bring them back to be able to collect and maintain and fix those meters more quickly to do that. But if you want more detail on where these meters were actually are, maybe Dan, just quickly give them a brief update of where those locations are.
Sure. Good afternoon. Dan Mitchell, Department of Transportation. The department provided a list of 4 different areas, and this is from a larger list of ongoing projects that our division has been pursuing when we've had the resources to do that. These were the 4 that seemed most easy to implement in the near term, and they include Northridge in CD12. That would be in the vicinity of Cal State Northridge, CSUN. Some areas in around Venice along Abbott Kinney on Street, and on the back side of that there's some new parking lots that are going in CD11. There's also 2 additional areas, Woodland Hills and Van Nuys, that the department initiated because they're existing parking meter zones, but there are blocks without meters, and to be consistent and provide the turnover and the benefits, it made sense to fill in those areas. So provided that we obtain the necessary support from the neighborhood councils and the council office, we would pursue that. Again, as
That's your question. Have you gone out to the council offices and the neighborhood councils yet, or is this your first step to kind of give us a heads up?
I know that the council offices, yes, but as far as the neighborhood councils, I know that at least the Woodland Hills was pursued at some point. We're trying to go back through our records and find at what point that project was put on hold, but we weren't able to find any reason other than staffing and available resources to pursue that. So that's what we put on the report, that, that would be pending support from we'd have to go back and ensure that we still have the support of the neighborhood councils, the local community. But in many cases, actually in some of the cases, parking studies have been done, others were ready to go. So these are the ones that we could most quickly pursue in the coming fiscal year. The issue, as Amir pointed out, is that our capital equipment funds for this coming year were cut back significantly, and we really don't have the funding to pursue purchasing new meters and installing them and expanding these new areas. As far as the outlook for what it would mean for next fiscal year, just rough analysis. If we put in these 1,300, 1,350 meters, we expect they'd bring about $1 million in additional revenue next fiscal year, both a combination of meter revenue and enforcement revenue. They would also cost at least $1 million to install. So for next fiscal year, it would be revenue neutral. Following fiscal years, it would generate additional revenue, and of course, it would if these meters are in demand, it would help turn over the spaces and support the adjacent businesses. But our recommendation at this point, as far as improving service to the public, is really to focus on the meters that we already have out in the street. Our current situation is we have 4 vacancies. Yes, Councilmember.
No, I just have a complaint here from the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. The Hollywood Chamber of Commerce has voted to urge changes in new parking meters in Hollywood. We received reports of numerous entertainment venues making these theaters, restaurants, and nightclubs who feel that the new program is adversely affecting your businesses. When you're speaking now, you think that everything's cool. It's not cool.
There's no
I understand that.
meters here.
No, I understand that. No, and I just want to say to the department, I understand what we're trying to do here. But I think what you have to do is go back to what Walter King did when he had parking on the 22nd floor. You have a business, you have a street, you get out there and you walk door to door and say, and get a deputy from a council office. I think each and every one of us would offer a deputy to work with your department to try to implement this. I have Lancashire Boulevard, which where the first meter went in 1948. It should be extended in and around the area there, but it's not going to happen if you go through a protracted situation. You have to figure a system that goes faster than this here and work with the local businesses. Hollywood doesn't like the 1-hour meters because people can't go to restaurants anymore because you get tickets. So there's going to be I don't know if you've seen this letter. Have you seen this letter yet?
Yes, we've been working with the Council Garcetti's office for about 90 to 200 hours. 4 months, we went door to door, stakeholders, police department, council office, everyone, council member. They all agreed on the 1-hour signs with the new extended hours.
Letter to the Hollywood Chamber.
And they asked us for the 2 hours, and I told them we can do that. There's a process, but I can't go and change the entire area to 2 hours because of just that one letter. We have to go, like you said, block by block and do a petition.
So that's the way to do it.
And that's what we will do.
Okay, good.
That's what we will do.
But I think each of us, and I'm not speaking for any other council person, but I would say going back to the method to try to get things done is you use a deputy. And they ask you to walk out with you and help you exercise that opportunity. If you're going to try to do this here, you got to do it, even though we're in dark times as far as the economic situations, you have a process here that you've had going on for 60, 70 years in Los Angeles, 60 years, that could be, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
In fact, the department will be sending a letter from the general manager to each council member as we finish the implementation of the signs, council member, asking the council member and the council staff to let us know what issues, what challenges, what stakeholders need to be involved. So we're doing that as part of finishing out that change. So actually, we're still finishing your district, so you will be getting a letter shortly as we've been working with you on some of those challenges.
Right, but I know it's not, people are, as the gentleman spoke, although I disagreed with some of his philosophy, I don't want to get people upset that we represent. I want to be fair to people. I want to be a fine city, not a fine city, if you know what I mean. So, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. So we will certainly be pursuing that, and our goal in our department is obviously to support the businesses with available parking through appropriate metered parking and time limits. Just going back to the intent of the original memo, as part of the budget process to seek out additional sources of revenue for the next fiscal year, the department's position is, as Mr. Sadati stated, is really best served by better being able to maintain the equipment that we already have on the street. We've done a recent survey of other large cities that maintain meters, more than 15,000 meters. And when you look throughout the country, the ratios of maintenance technicians to their inventory is about 1,200 meters per technician. Currently, we're operating at 1,500 meters per technician. These other cities include cities that are privately operated by private contractors. Their meter operations operated by private contractors as well. And speaking to them, they just found when you try to cut staff and increase those ratios, that it has an adverse effect on revenue and the ability to maintain service. So our suggestion is to fully staff the meter operation that we have. The estimates that we've done show that we get a benefit cost ratio of at least 2 to 1 for every position we fill, meaning the revenue gained by improving the level of service on those meters is twice as much as the cost of filling those positions.
And that just reminded me of two issues, that are unrelated. I think on this item, what we want you to do is come back in 90 days with, sorry, Mr. Parks, if you jump in here, but 90 days with a report back on the potential in the interim, having had conversations with each council office, and ensuring, as we've talked about, to ensure that both the council member and the staff know that there is some kind of paper trail, so to speak, or email response that says, here, we're laying this out for you. But I think it will take working with the neighbored councils and going door to door and to be able to do that. The question I have, when you talked about maintenance, I know it may have been during the council budget session, there was a concern that some of the new meters that we have or the old meters that we have, because of the rates being increased, that we weren't able to take the coins out as quickly as we were having more failure rates because of that. Has that been remedied?
Yes, we've increased collection frequencies. We're working with our current contract vendor, Serco, with those challenges. They've been helpful in increasing some of the resources. We're finding some other challenges with broken locks, which was something we did not anticipate. So that's another challenge we're working on. But, with the technology that we have been able to provide, both of the whole function, it's the ability to look at these programs and software and reports to see where those anomalies were and go back and fix them. So we've done a much better job, council member. It's not perfect yet. We still do have the older technology, as you know. And that right now, the older technology only accepts coins. In some areas, we were able to make the technology take dollar coins, and again, not everybody has dollar coins. So the future is trying to provide better customer convenience, like credit cards and cell phone payments. And as we were directed by the council to pursue and finish that request for proposal, I think that will come once we get there. But we got this interim period right now that we have doubled and tripled or quadrupled the rates. We still have some of the old technology. We still have some of the challenges. We have existing contracts with the collection contracts. So we're working with all of those entities to improve collections, and so we don't leave gold in the gutter, that we pick those things up and we put them in the bank.
Okay. And so on the meters, there was some, whether it go out to RFP, not go out to RFP, we had instructed previously, prior to the budget being prepared, and then there was a holdback because of the potential P3. What's the status of that?
We are actually requesting to bring back the consultant that we had on a 90-day contract. So that approval, I believe, is through the managed hiring process. So we're waiting to get that approval, and we will have begun working trying to finish up and wrap up the RFP to be released. So we have picked up steam and trying to get that moving with all the different few different options that we didn't have before to make that RFP complete and be released.
Okay. Mr. Parker?
Let me just ask, would the RFP be the right vehicle to also include some of the expansion?
It could. Councilmember, that would be the other option. If we don't have the funding right now to go, and as Dan mentioned, we've got we're shovel-ready, but if we don't have the funding, then yes, that could be ready, that could be put into an expansion as part of the RFP, yes.
But we wouldn't be looking at these 4 or 5 locations with the old equipment, would we?
No, we still have the ability to put a few of the new equipment. We have a little bit of extra available that we could put either the single space with the credit card or a few pay stations in those areas.
Okay, but have we decided, or are we waiting for the RFP to determine what the technology is going to be?
True. We do have the 15% converted with the technologies that we went through that exercise of 18 months of piloting. So we would continue. So this would, if the council directed us to come back and implement those new areas, we would follow in suit with the existing 15%, those types of technologies that we have already in place.
Okay, but I mean, what I'm wondering about the RFP, are they going to bring us new technologies? Or do we feel certain that we've pretty well captured what's out there?
The RFP is going to be comprehensive in the back-end system, the technology that takes credit card, council member, as well as cell phone, as well as the battery power versus solar power, the display, the comfort level to there's a lot of different components in it. So what we've done is we're taking all of the lessons learned from the 3 different types that we have brought in as far as our extended pilot, things we liked, we put into RFP, and things we learned from them that we want to be in the technology. The enhancements are going to be as well in the RFP. So the RFP could be, a combination of things. It could be, similar pay-by-space type of products. It could be something that some areas might be a different technology, but all of it at the end has to communicate with our parking enforcement handhelds and, all the different technology that we already have in place. That's why I said it's a back-end system as well as the technology that all basically feeds into this back-end system.
Okay. When we look at this list of 4 or 5 different locations, this is not all inclusive of what we could expand to. This is just what was in the system.
That is correct. Due to, I think, the limited staffing, we weren't able to go and fully survey all the other areas. As Councilmember Labange mentioned, he has a few areas, and I think you had mentioned you were looking at some areas, and definitely Councilmember Rosendahl had mentioned some areas. So this was something that was in the pipelines. Councilmember, through either the council district, through working with the neighborhoods, that just never materialized. So that this was like a waiting list, but you do have some additional areas that could be surveyed, but unfortunately that would take some time.
Okay. Would that also be an item that should be looked at for the RFP, that in addition to them looking at our equipment, that they're also asked to look at how we might expand this technology to places that currently do not have it?
I think that's something that we as a city want control over, because there is a process, as Councilmember Labange mentioned, that we want to work with the neighborhood councils, the council office, and business especially. Because
I think the study I'm talking about is where they go out and analyze it and can give you ideas before you implement it. You'd have to go through some process. But for us to be in a situation of shortage of personnel and a few other things, to always rely on city personnel and say, well, we can't get to it. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering whether this RFP can be expanded to where we're going to pay people to go out and look at this. They're going to be asking for a significant response, whether we deal with it in an entire package, that they're looking at our existing equipment, the 40,000 meters. They're looking at opportunities. They're looking at what we've identified as new areas. They are also providing us guidance on where new areas could be implemented.
Let us take that under advisement, Councilmember. I'm not sure I have all the answers right now, but that definitely is something we can look at. We hadn't thought about that in the original scope of the RFP for them to go do that study.
They give us something to work with as part of the RFP. We're not telling them to implement it. We're just asking them to tell us the state of our parking venues, whether we have meters on them or not. And if they come back and they give us 50 and we say we're not interested in 20, we can begin to look at the other issues. Let me ask you one other thing. On the, as you guys are developing the criteria for the local return money on Prop R, is one of the categories you might look at is to fund or expand parking?
I'm not, are you talking about Measure R, Councilmember?
Yeah.
Yeah, Measure R. I don't believe it has parking as a component or a accepted or
It talked
approved
about
component.
infrastructure or something. I don't know if it had parking specifically. But
Councilman, it doesn't necessarily call that out, but I think parking meters would be eligible for that, but we can look into that through the working group.
that's another source. And then one of the things we asked the CAO to do during the budget is to, that we not continue to borrow without repaying special parking revenue fund, that we create a financial policy that says if we're going to borrow it, it's got to be returned within a certain period of time, which also should give you some sense that there's a dollar value that you can begin to plan with as you look to continue to increase parking out in the community. So we can look at those sources with Measure R,
We will.
also because I think you're doing the criteria now.
For the Measure R?
Yeah. It was,
Yeah.
working on that now.
Right.
So you can look at that and also look at with the CAO on, as they develop the criteria for our policy about repayment of SBRF money, how that might, you can, because right now we take it and you never get it back. But if it's taken and with a period of time you can expect it back, then you can start planning for its usage.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Hi.
Bill?
I love the gold in the gutter and always attributing it to me. First question I want to ask you is this. You said if you had the staff in place, you could do the following things. Can you give us the real numbers on that? Because I will fight for you to have the staff, if that staff not only pays for itself, but generates revenue for the city. There's no way I buy into you not having enough people to collect the gold in the gutter and also to move forward with getting more meters out there. It is cutting our nose to spite our face. So report back with the exact amount of people you need to do your job. And I will fight it and try to count to 8 or 10, because it's lunacy not to have people who generate the revenue on the payroll that obviously generate more revenue than what their payroll means, which helps us in our basic business here. Because when you started off with that, that was just too much for me again to handle. So please come back. Obviously, the great Ms. Gruhl won't be here at that point, but the committee will. And I want that report as quickly as possible so I can fight for you to get the people to do the job that's necessary to bring in the revenue stream that's out.
We can have that to you in 30 days.
Great. That'd be very helpful. Second thing is this Abercrombie business. What I'd like to do right now is I've walked up and down the streets with all the merchants the other day. I'd like you to post the signs that say 2 hours. One area it says 4 hours, another area it says 2 hours, another area it says 1 hour. Abbott Kinney as a street has become robust. And if you notice, practically every spot on Abbott Kinney has cars. And merchants have come to me and said, Bill, if it was standard 2 hours everywhere, it would help us the flow of customers. So please, it costs a nickel, can be done tomorrow. Put 2 hour signs up. And if there's anything I need to do to make that happen, tell me what I need to do. But I want to walk down Abbott Kinney and see all of it at 2 hours. Okay? Third thing is, we are doing the back alleys. You know, Pat Russell got the land from the railroad. My predecessors never moved on it. I kicked out all the encroachment except this big artist that is fighting me in the courts. And I want them off the public land. It's public land for public use. Ed Rouchet, I say to you, or anybody else. And we are now able to do at least 100 nice spots in the back. And you guys have been fabulous. And that will be a wonderful addition to Abbott Kinney. So I'm very proud of how we're moving in that direction. When we cut the ribbon and started the shoveling, it's moving greatly. But before we consider meters on the front side of Abbott Kinney, we have to work out a formula where some of that money can stay in my district. Because I resent it going to the damn da-da-da-da and I never get anything back. And the merchants on the street have said to me, Bill, if you're going to put meters up, some of it's got to come back to the community. And so I don't know how far down the line it will be before we put meters on Abbott Kinney Street. But when we get closer to the notion of doing it, that's when I want to codify some kind of a formula of revenue sharing of that, because otherwise I'll have World War III with my constituents. Okay. Also, there's been a plan since 1994, and I'd like to report back in 30 days on this one, where Ruth Galanter had done some diagonal parking in Venice in different spots. A whole study was done that showed we could get significantly more parking spots if we did diagonal. I want to dust off that old report and see how relevant it is today and see if we can implement that in some kind of a time frame, that makes sense. Golly. But the last thing is I just wish we could grab all of that money that's in the gutter and bring it into the city treasury. And that goes back to my initial point of you tell me what you need to do that, and I want to be an advocate for that.
Thank you very much for your support.
Just a question on that with kind of my council hat and my future hat on this one, which is the, on the SPRF, which is where the parking meter money goes in. Right now, it goes into the grade, although there's kind of some understanding of generally, although not assigned to that district, there's kind of a priority for that district, and we're going to have to, that's a very big policy decision, I think. But I heard when parking meter rates were increased on Ventura Boulevard, for example, they were like, great, but we'd like to see some benefit on other things that would happen on that street. And so, and there may be some balance in which you look at that when people are being charged, so.
Because that's a great point. When the Pacific Palisades, just to give you a minor example on this, they wanted to build a parking structure. We need a parking structure in certain areas there. But we lost all that bread. It went to the general treasury. And when we go forward with the Palisades, a whole community leadership group met 2 Saturdays ago, and again brought up the idea of a parking structure that would meet their needs. At the same time, they bring in the energy. How are we going to pay for it? And this is where we're willing to be part of the solution in every way we go. Also, there's the relationships with schools that want to also provide parking. That is a long-term discussion, but right there, just to be more provincial again, that Westminster School on Abbott Kinney has a parking lot. They would love to potentially have a relationship with us that could provide obviously more parking for all of us. But Ms. Gruhl's point, she'll do the auditing and I'll do the pushing, and together we'll get it done.
We have to, but there is a balance, though. I mean, I have been one, as you know, on sale of surplus property, for example, that it should go into the general fund. So you have to make an argument. There's a nexus and a portion of it. But I think the department has also indicated that it makes it easier to sell when there's some benefit to the community.
Yeah, and the department stands committed, working with our future controller and this committee and the future chair and all of those great ideas. And, it is a policy decision at the end that we can provide the data and the formulas and benefits, but at the end, I think it is a policy decision that the council would have to vote on.
Thank you. Thank you. So we gave you instructions on item number 10. I think it is to report back in 90 days.
Just one other question. Is any of that $3 million still floating around somewhere about that P3 business, or is it down to the $500,000? Where is that finally left in the money, dollars and cents? It's $500,000, right?
There was $500,000 that was requested in 08-09 funds.
Correct.
And an additional $3 million in 2009-10 funds.
What about that $3 million additional money?
That is still being discussed. There has not been a final action made.
It's in the UB, right?
Yeah.
But it's currently sitting in the UB. We are receiving several requests for funding different projects. One of them includes the intelligent parking management project that the DOT is receiving $15 million in grant funding to do an intelligent parking management study, and they will need a $3.5 million match for that project.
Is that the stimulus money?
No, that's the federal UPA congestion pricing grant.
As long as we keep an eye on it, right?
All right. Sorry to put you on the spot on that one, so, okay. That item will be approved and report back in 90 days. We're going to go to items 8 and 9.
Should we go to 6 first and get the question answered?
We will go to 7. We're going to go to
Okay.
8 and 9 that were continued
Okay.
from the last week as well with LAPD, and then we will go to the other.
Okay, item 7 is a DOT report relative to...
Eight.
8, I'm sorry. 8 and 9. 8 is the Reyes-Hahn-Rosendahl motion relative to the LAPD, DOT, and city planning to report on the bicycle safety and licensing program. And item 9 is a Hahn-Rosendahl-Reyes motion relative to the LAPD report on recent bicycle incidents and conflicts between bicyclists and motorists.
And before you begin, we had a public hearing last week about this and have had many public speakers, many that are here today, where they feel there's been inconsistent training, different impressions, even with my discussions with some police officers asking them what they think the rules of the bicycle road are, so to speak, and you get different answers, as well as when we had a case within Budget and Finance recently as well, where there was a difference of opinion of rights from the bicyclists and what you're supposed to do, in particular crosswalks and lights and sides of streets. So I think there is a keen interest in ensuring where the training has happened, how the information is getting out on both of these, on the licensing program and as well on the incidents, the conflicts between the bicyclists and motorists, in addition to with LAPD. So with that in mind.
Yes, Council Member, for the record, Commander Mike Williams, assigned to the Office of Operations, Los Angeles Police Department. Good afternoon. With regard to training and the officers' awareness or lack thereof of the rules of the road as they apply to bicyclists, we recognize on the department that is an area of concern, and we are in the process within the Office of Operations of putting together a very reasonable and cogent training program so that officers understand what they can cite for, what the rules of the road are as it relates to bicyclists and motorists. We've recently, with regard to licensure, we've recently published a Office of Operations notice reminding officers that the license requirement for bicycles has been repealed within the city of Los Angeles. So we're aware, Council Member, of the need for training. I share your concern that there is a lot of confusion amongst a number of officers as to the rules of the road as they apply to bicyclists. And rest assured, the Office of Operations is on that point.
Does it happen at the academy? I mean, is that part of their initial training and learning the laws? As far as I know, we have all kinds of categories of different training that's important for them to receive from day one when they come onto the department.
I'm not assigned to training, and I haven't gone to the academy for 30-some years, but I know that we spend a lot of time on the California Vehicle Code sections. I know that we do receive some rudimentary instructions as to what you can cite bicyclists for. The truth of the matter is, I think a lot of officers don't regularly cite bicyclists, and so since they don't use those sections, it's a perishable skill set or knowledge base, so they don't recall those sections. We have a cheat sheet that they can refer to, but oftentimes there's some questions as to what sections actually apply, how they apply. So we're going to address that in our training throughout the department.
And I think it would be interesting. Again, there's certain parts of the city where we clearly have more bicyclists than others. It would be kind of as you go into the priorities of going to those areas and to ensure that training happens and working clearly with our Department of Transportation and being able to do that. So is this training going forward? I mean, is this something that is going to happen in the near future, or is it an ongoing training? How does that occur?
It's training that is going to go forward. It's going to be roll call training, which means the officers receive this information in written form as well as videotape form during their roll call period.
And would I actually even be interested in going one time to a roll call when you have that kind of training to see exactly what they're providing and to understand and see where some of the misconceptions are, I think, in the police department. So if you would let me know that. And I think, so on item number 9, do you want to report on any, Mr. Reyes had introduced a motion to report on bicycle interests. Anything else you want to, I know you've talked a little bit about the training. Anything else you would like to add to that before we go to public comment?
Well, if you'd like, Councilmember, I can address the issue relative to the specific incident that was brought up before the council and referred to the committee.
In Van Nuys, that day in Van Nuys, is that the one you're talking about?
Downtown.
No, downtown.
I think it got brought up at the Van Nuys meeting of the city council, but it was the downtown.
It occurred downtown.
Yeah, but that's the issue, that they came in large numbers to Van Nuys.
Yes. Just to review, it was April 24th. It was about 1:15 in the morning within Central area downtown. There's a large group of approximately 15 cyclists. They were traveling southbound on Los Angeles Street, approaching 7th Street, when a collision occurred between a 2007 Hummer and a cyclist.
Right.
After the collision, the driver of the Hummer indicated that he was fearful for his safety because a number of the cyclists became very angry as a result of that traffic collision, and he attempted to leave the location, and in doing so, he ran over, I believe it was 3 bicycles. He was located about a block away from the scene while awaiting the arrival of the police, and he shared his version of what occurred with the officer that took the report. The officer interviewed the involved bicyclists, the individual that was involved in the collision, as well as the individuals that were with this gentleman. In summary, the case, all 3 investigations were conducted by our traffic division, Central Traffic Division, and those 3 incidents, being the traffic collision, the alleged hit and run, and the alleged vandalism. And I might remind you that the vandalism was alleged when, according to the driver of the vehicle, a cyclist took a bicycle and threw it into his vehicle and broke his mirror, side mirror on his vehicle. At any rate, all 3 of those cases were submitted to the city attorney. The city attorney has reviewed all 3 of those cases. There was the rejection the city attorney rejected filing on 2 of those cases, and the vandalism case is still pending before the city attorney. The city attorney has not made a decision as to disposition on the vandalism case.
When you say the collision, what was the collision? What exactly happened?
According to the investigation, the driver of the Hummer was stopped for a light, and the bicyclist collided to the rear of his vehicle.
So, in other words, he had stopped at the light, and the bicyclist bumped into the back of his Hummer?
Correct.
Okay, and then what happened?
At that point, according to a witness and according to the driver of the vehicle, a number of people surrounded the motorist's vehicle and started yelling and swearing at him. He became very alarmed, according to him, and he tried to leave. There were 3 bicycles that were thrown in his path to prevent him from leaving, at which time he elected to drive over those unoccupied bicycles to get away. He was then located by the traffic officer about a block away from the incident.
So the bicycles were thrown in front of him, not with the rider on them?
There was bicycles thrown in front of his vehicle to prevent him from leaving, and there was also a vehicle, according to him, that was thrown at his vehicle, hence we have the alleged vandalism.
I see.
And when he left to go around the corner, did he call the police from there, or he just waited? I mean,
he waited, and he was located by the responding traffic officer, at which point he was interviewed.
Did he call the police, or did the bicyclist call the police?
I'm not certain if he actually called the... I believe, yes.
And so you have witness testimony?
Could you come up to
Yeah,
the podium? We need to have that on the record, your name.
There was one eyewitness that corroborated the motorist version of what occurred. He was standing approximately 300 feet away and observed what occurred. He observed the traffic collision as well as the subsequent yelling and screaming and the motorist driving away and driving over the bicycles.
And what did you just say, officer? Tell us your name for the record.
Captain Gregory Allen, sir.
And what did you say, Captain? From your
In response to the question of who telephoned the police,
right.
We believe that it was the independent witness or one of the bicyclists, but it was not the motorist.
And when he pulled to the side, I mean, he left the scene, but was he waiting there, or did he drive away and get stopped because he left the scene, or what was the...
No, he left the scene, to, according to his statement, to get away from the angry group, and waited about a block away, at which time the officer contacted him and took his statement.
He's driving the bike under his car.
Just, sir, you're going to get a chance. Please, no more outbreaks.
Anything else you'd like? Any questions from them before we go to the public comment?
Okay, the city attorney's office is pending that third point, which was...
The alleged vandalism, where it was alleged that one of the cyclists threw his or her bicycle, and they have not been able to determine who actually allegedly did that, and resulted in the damage to his vehicle. His mirror was broken.
Were any of the bicyclists injured?
There was one individual, as I recall, that was transported to the hospital for complaint of injuries. I don't know what the extent of that person's injuries were ultimately, if there were any broken bones or anything like that, I'm not aware of.
And was this an incident, was this individual believed the one that interacted with the car as far as the first part of the accident or subsequent?
To my understanding, it was the individual that collided with the vehicle.
Collided with the vehicle.
Yes.
Mr. Parks, do you want to say anything? I think one thing we would like, and I know you can't include the names, but if there's a written report that has been done, it would be helpful going forward. And I think some of these questions will be asked in the city council as well.
Like the injuries, if there were injuries, any more specific information. In the city attorney's office, of course, we're going to want them to have something to say about the vandalism or alleged vandalism.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Don't go far. We're going to have public hearing on this, both of these items before us. I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add or the department wanted to add on the bicycle safety and licensing program in the city. I know we talked about it. I think we did talk about it last week, if my recollection is correct. Is this one you're going to report back on? Or just approve the motion that you're going to come back with a bicycle safety and licensing program that indicates where they can license their bike?
Michelle Mallory with Department of Transportation. We have worked with LAPD in development of the training program. I left materials on your desk today, and I think I left the video, as well as the officer list of citations in there. What we'll do is work with LAPD to either re-implement that program or expand it. But it's one that we have implemented as a roll call video with LAPD twice now.
But it is clear we no longer have a requirement that you must have your bicycle license in the city of Los Angeles.
That is correct.
And that information has been transmitted to every police officer through roll call or whatever it may be.
That's correct.
So that there should not be any tickets related to that. This was for another purpose in which if you want to license your bicycle in a way in which you can ensure if it is stolen or you are injured and have no ID on you, that there would be another way to do that, but it would be through private. Was that correct, Michelle? Was that
there are a number of private firms, and there are things like ankle bands and wristbands that provide ID. I actually have a number of things, as well as a sticker inside my helmet and on the bottom of my seat, so I can be identified. But we can provide information to the public about how to do that as we update our website.
Okay. Great. Thank you. So we'll just take public comment and then come back. This will be on both items 8 and 9 before us. We'll have a minute each, as we did last week, on these items. We'll go first for those on number 8. If we could call all four individuals, and then those that will be next, if you could be prepared to come up when someone vacates that seat. Roadblock, Alan Alessio. Jim McQuiston and Alex Thompson. And after that, it'll be Stephen Box on item number 8. Alan? I feel like I know you all now because there are multiple discussions. So we'll go ahead and just go this way. It's fine. Go ahead, Alan.
All right. Alan Alessio, and good afternoon. I took interest in this incident that happened downtown after hearing some of the bicyclist version of it, and bicyclist version is completely different than what the officer's version is. One of the things that I found out was they surrounded the Hummer because there was no...
And this is, by the way, this is on item number 8. You have a card on item number 9 as well. This is on I took the number 8 first, which is on the bicycle safety program. You
All
can
right,
speak
so when
on
do we
both.
comment as far as like the Hummer incident? Is it 8 or 9?
That's number 9.
Okay.
You put in a card for number 8, which is on the
Right.
bicycle safety and license.
Right, okay. Number 8 then. What I was wanting to mention on item 8 was the rules of the road. Seems like the officers are always coming up with the explanation of the bicyclist staying to the right, which is not always the case. There are times where the bicyclist does have a right to the road, and they need to learn that and make sure that that's actually part of their training. It seems like every time we hear it's like stay to the right, and that's not the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Roadblock? Or Jim, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jim. We'll go that way.
Jim McQuiston.
And Stephen, come on up.
I gave you a statement. I promised that I would give you a proposed change to the statutes. I do want to say this is very succinct because that's my style, but I'd certainly be willing to answer any questions on it. I do think, from my legal experience, that the ordinance really needs to be changed because it's not definite and it's subject to multiple interpretation. I've tried to get this up so that we do get some budgetary relief, but the problem is if you register bicycles, then DOT knows where they need bicycle lanes because they know where people have bicycles. And without that information, it's really spitting in the ocean. So we really do need to have registration for bicycles, especially for commuters. I think it's extremely important.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just basically wanted to comment that if you guys do establish a bicycle safety and licensing program, that the funding from that goes to officer education as well as cyclist education on both sides, and that the licensing program be voluntary and not compulsory.
We've gotten rid of the licensing program, but I would appreciate you coming back with some suggestions of what we should tell the police from your perspective.
Email you or?
Yeah, well, bring us something.
Okay.
I'd be curious to hear your positioning of how we should educate.
For sure. Thanks.
Thank you. So if we could also have, Stephen Box, Ian, as well as Arisha. Take the final 3, please.
My understanding is that you guys are investigating the possibility. Alex Thompson. My understanding is that you guys are investigating the possibility of a bike licensing program which is not compulsory. Is that the gist?
Yes, I mean, I think that people have indicated an interest, and we'll hold your time if you could. So what I'm responding to you is that there were individuals who were concerned about when you were a kid, you licensed your bicycle, so if you got lost, something happened, there was a way in which a kid is not necessarily carrying their driver's license with them or ID. So that there are private groups that now do that, but was there some other way in which, if you were interested as well, if your bicycle was stolen and it had no identification on it, was there a way to do it?
I think I can address those then. From my point of view, for the reasons we discussed, a compulsory program is just a recipe for harassment. So looking at a non-compulsory program, to me it seems like a bureaucratic nightmare. If you're going to use, say, LAPD divisions to do it, you've got 18 divisions, you've got to train a clerical staff. It's going to amount to a diversion of a lot of resources to implement this program. And I don't really see that the mechanism for protecting children is substantial, and I don't think in terms of recovering stolen bicycles it's particularly effective, because the old licensing program, for example, used a sticker. Well, if I'm a bicycle thief, the first thing I do is scrape the sticker off. So I don't really think this is an effective approach. Thank you.
Thank you. And just so you know, we were never thinking it would be LAPD, because in the current program.
I was trying to give an
Yeah,
example.
no, I know. I hope that's very helpful, because I think you're right. It would be a nightmare in doing that. So, and I think they would appreciate the fact that we don't want it to be LAPD, as they smile over there not having that. So we'll go back over here, Stephen.
Stephen Box, I live in Hollywood. Lance Armstrong's bicycle was stolen, and the guy that stole it just got 3 years in jail. So,
Where was that?
It was stolen up north somewhere during that, where was it? Sacramento. 3 years in jail for stealing that bike. So, the thing is, they didn't have a bike license on that bicycle. What they did have was a network of cyclists that worked together to communicate, just like we have here in L.A. So you can go online now and register where you've been hit by a car, where you've had an incident with a metro, where your bicycle was stolen, and you can even register online now where you were hit and run. Too bad that we don't have the kind of law enforcement support for cyclists that Lance Armstrong has for his bicycle. So perhaps we should register cyclists so that we get the same kind of protection that Lance gets for his bike, because the bottom line is when Mr. Block was hit and left in the street of Glendale Boulevard, the police haven't responded or arrested anybody, and that person is still driving home every night to Glendale.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Ian Marchbanks, and I'll wait for Councilmember Rosendahl.
Mr. Rosendahl, I think he wants you to make sure he hears
I'm sorry.
I live in West Los Angeles, and after the last time I was in Van Nuys, I went around to Central, West Traffic, West LA, and Pacific Division. I spoke to a number of police officers, about a dozen. 3 of them knew the law regarding bicycles operating the roadway. Most of the police officers use the cheater book as their primary and only method of learning about bicycle laws. And let me read you exactly what they learned. Riders near the right curb or edge of the roadway is practicable. Exceptions may use the left on one-way street. Now, this doesn't include narrow roadways, surface hazards, or the door zone. This is all that our cops know. And 59% of our streets, according to the Bureau of Street Services, are a grade C, D, or F. So if you're going more than 5 miles, you're riding on some rough roads, and you need to use that full lane to be safe. And as far as the licensing, I asked all of those same officers, had they heard about this memo from Chief Bratton? Not one single officer out of a dozen had heard anything. And this was 2 weeks ago. So thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
In other words,
That's our
they're still
interchange.
assuming you're getting a license?
Yeah, and they say that we will give you a ticket if you don't have one, but we're going to be nice about it. Thank you.
Be nice about the ticket, all right. So, we'll make sure, again, it might be timely again to send out that information, and not only in the larger training, but to do that. So, Arisha.
Right. So I want to talk. My name is Arisha from LACBC. I want to talk about the training. I'd like to know who will be actually conducting this training and what the information in the training will consist of. And I'd like to say that not only LACBC but other people in the bicycle community should be viewing what this training material will be before, to make sure that it actually covers all the necessary items, so that we don't come here again in a year from now and what he just stated, that there is missing information from what the actual LAPD officers are learning. So I'd like for you to make sure that LACBC and other crucial members of the bicycle community are incorporated in developing that training workshop.
So, you're commander now, captain, commander. You're a commander now? Commander, okay. I didn't want to lower you're a captain when I knew you, so, yeah. So for Michelle and Commander, if we could, I think it is important to have input as you design. You may already have some existing training materials that you've developed in the past, but clearly some things have changed, to work with the bicycle community and the coalition, and of course DOT, to ensure that the people are at the table to look at that. I think
We'll
that
certainly
would
do that, Councilmember.
give a credibility to whatever comes out. So thank you. Thank you for your offer of assistance.
Okay.
So, yeah. Well, they'll definitely put it online. It will definitely go online, but I'm not sure in the draft what they will do is we'll bring some people together, do that, and then they will send it online. And if there's things that are wrong, as that training materials go out, that you can provide that to them as well. So on item number 8, colleagues, what we would do is approve the motion, which asks them to, and then report back under the next chair on that. On item number 9, we'll call up the following individuals: Ian Marchbank as well, Andres, I think it's Teng, Damian Newton, followed by Roadblock. Those are the first 4. The next 4 would be Alan Alessio, Arisha, Stephen Box, Daniel J., I believe it is, and then there'll be 3 additional ones. So, please go ahead.
I'm Ian Marchbank. I just wanted to really quickly say I'm just so deeply disappointed with the response of the LAPD today. It seems like they came better prepared to discuss the alleged vandalism, which from what my close friends have told me, and I trust my close friends better than the LAPD, is just absolutely ludicrous. And they seem better prepared to discuss the vandalism than this gentleman here, whose foot was run over by a truck, and they didn't even know how he was injured, just that he was hospitalized. They know more about a side mirror than this young man, and they care more about a side mirror than this young man, and I hope that...
I think we'd be more than happy to ask them on that particular incident. I think the one that had come forward previously in that they were responding to was the one that everyone came to the Van Nuys City Hall, but I will ask them to report on that as well. Oh, this is the one that, I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's okay. So, I hope that you take this back, and I hope that you let, the people who are involved in this incident know that this is what you should be protecting, not a side mirror.
Thank you. Andres?
Hi, my name is Andres, and I'm a cyclist in Los Angeles. I was the one involved in the incident. As of right now, I'm okay. This is probably a really, really good day for me. Sometimes I wake up really happy. Sometimes I wake up sad because my back hurts so much. I was hit, no doubt about it. It's a hit and run. Please, what's going on, guys? Please, help us out. We are people, too. We're citizens. We're citizens. We support L.A. to the fullest. And all I'm asking is just let me, please, address any incidents like this right. Keep us safe. You're the LAPD. You're here to protect and serve. That's pretty much it.
And let me ask you this. You said you were hit.
Yeah.
Describe it to us.
I honestly, I was hit. It was, I would want to say it was a side swipe. I don't remember. It was pretty much feeling contact, me flying in the air, hitting the floor, trying to get up, shock, because I try to get up, I can't get up. I was like, I'm in shock. I was like, oh, I can't feel my foot. Someone from behind picks me up, I go to the sidewalk, and all I hear is crash, a big scrape, it's a bike, and all I see is lights, and next thing you know, I'm in the hospital.
And how long were you in the hospital?
I was in there for about 15 to 16 hours, 7 hours waiting in the emergency room. And Officer Cho was actually called me the next day. He said, oh, where were you? I was in the emergency room. I was like, I didn't see you. I called out your name. I called out your name a couple of times. Well, I was in the emergency room for 7 hours waiting to get a bed. And pretty much in pain the whole time.
And what did they say your injuries were? Or what,
it's pretty much my injuries right now. It's like it was a sprained ankle. I'm really happy it was just a sprained ankle. My back, my spine is really out of alignment. I had a very large bruise on my left hip. They thought it was hematoma, which would have been really bad. They thought there was internal damage, but it was all clear. The only really bad thing is I have really, really bad back problems now. And it just hurts to walk, it hurts to sit.
To a doctor, a back doctor?
Yeah, I'm actually getting chiropractic work done now, and I know it's not going to get any better. My back is not going to be the same. I'm not going to be able to, sometimes I really don't feel like sleeping. I don't feel like standing. I don't feel like walking. And the worst part about it is my back hurts so much sometimes that I do not feel like biking anymore.
And again, just describe to me what happened at 1:15 in the morning to you.
To me, I was hungry. We were all hungry. We were going home. Next thing you know, I'm riding my bike, minding my own business, looking at my friends ride with me. I was really happy. I feel contact. I see the sky. I see the Hummer pretty much whizzing by me, and I just hit the floor. That's pretty much what it is. I got hit. They ran over more bikes, and they're still driving right now. And I'm pretty sure, I don't want to say they're going to hit someone else, but if they do it once, they're going to do it again. And get away with it.
On this incident, I know that there was sort of the he said in the report, but in the story I've heard from Andres, I've talked to him before. There's a full interview on Streets Blog that I hoped you would have read with him.
Sorry about that.
So I forgive you. But Andres and the witness and the cyclist say he was sort of hit from behind and almost sort of like this or like this. They're not really sure because people weren't watching. The report says that he rear-ended an SUV, or excuse me, a Hummer. This should have been very easy to clear up who was right or who was wrong by looking at Andres's bike. And I don't believe that was done, or if it was, it wasn't in the report. If he rode into something, the front of his bike will have damage. If he was hit from behind, the back of his bike will have damage. And I've, through public records, I've requested a copy of the report. I haven't gotten it yet, and I don't know how long ago it was I requested it, but I see it. So I don't know if they've looked at it, but this question shouldn't be a he said, she said. They should have looked at the bike, and they would know how the collision actually happened.
Where's the bike now?
My bike's downstairs. The bike, actually, I was the one that got hit, which is pretty much sideswipe. I got sideswiped. That's pretty much what it is. My bike's okay. The front, the back, the side, everything. I'm just the one that got hit.
Was it your right foot?
It was my left foot, left side, pretty
So
much.
it came
It's
by
pretty
on the
much
left.
me. I'm riding my bike. Hummer's coming, and pretty much just ran it. Kind of just. I guess he was trying to get around me, but I guess he didn't get far enough. And I really don't know. I just know it's impact, sky, floor, me in hospital.
I would like to make a comment. Well, it's not necessarily regarding the Hummer incident, but I was also hit and run. And I was carried on the hood for about 50, 75 feet before I was thrown off and then left for dead in the middle of the road. Fortunately, I got the license plate number, most of the plate number. Now, I don't know if it's, lack of funding or if it's sort of an institutional bias against cyclists, but I've been trying very hard I tried after I got out of the hospital. The next day I called up the police, ready to go. I got the 6 out of the 7 numbers, let's get going, guys. And the response was kind of like, well, I know that the LAPD has a lot of important issues to handle, but this seemed like, a pretty important case. Somebody hit and ran from the scene. I'm just saying that there is a loophole in the law somehow that says if you are drunk and you cause an accident, it's more worth it to take off and leave the scene than to stay there and be responsible, because the actual penalties for a hit and run are less than the penalties for a drunk driving accident. So I would just love it if you guys and the LAPD looked at this and focused on this kind of a problem, because there's a lot of hit and runs out there. We've had 5 so far this year, and let's see, 4 or 5 hit and run accidents on bikes this year.
That we know of.
Yeah. A lot of it doesn't get reported because you can't simply, luckily I was still conscious, blurry-eyed, sitting there and laying on the floor, able to get the plate, and I Twittered it because I forgot it later, but there's that online thing again. Anyways, just if there's some way we can get the ball rolling on looking at this law and also having the cops treat it a little bit more importantly than just like, you're not too injured. All right, well, it'll be a few weeks before we can run the plates.
If I could ask the CLA, we could look at the 2 different laws related to the drunk driving and what the penalties are for that as well, and working with LAPD to also compare with the hit and run. Okay.
And is there a police record on your...
There's a police report. They classified. They were very, very awesome. The police were very awesome the night of. They came to visit me in the hospital. It was a felony hit and run. I actually was able to, through a friend, locate the guy and he worked with a person in the CHP who has more resources and able to run plates quicker. But we actually, it's happening. The lawyer is on it, and we made contact with the guy's insurance company. So.
Thank you. Alan, come on up, Alan. Arisha, Stephen, and Daniel J. After that will be Justin Garcia, Alex Thompson, Mark Peterson, and Jeff Jacoberger.
Good afternoon, Alan Alessio. After speaking to some of the writers regarding this incident, this Hummer incident, there's very little that's actually working out to be close to the same incident as what the officer's report is. One of the things that I've learned talking to the the bicyclists was that the reason why they surrounded the Hummer was because the Hummer didn't have any plates, and the Hummer was going to pull a hit and run on these guys. So these guys are trying to get some information as far as who these guys are, get a vehicle VIN number or something. They weren't being that big of a victim, wanting to run away from these outlaw bicyclists. These guys are in a Hummer. It's like, come on, These guys tried to get away. They ran over a bike. The bike was stuck under the car, under the SUV. And that's the reason why these guys got pulled over by the cops. They didn't call the cops or anything like that. If there wasn't a bicycle under the Hummer, these guys would have got away.
That was why I asked that question about who actually called, because if you were in the incident, you would go around the corner, and if you felt that way, call somebody and say, this incident occurred. Thank you.
Arisha from LACBC. So LAPD officers have continuously sided with motor vehicle drivers. It seems like from more than one story, it seems like that they're always take the version of the story that the officer decides to listen to. In this case, it's the car. In many other cases, it's also the car, not the cyclists. The driver in the Hummer case chose to drive over 3 bicycles. If he had banged into 3 cars along his way, you can be sure that the LAPD and other people would definitely be holding the Hummer driver a lot more accountable. But because it's 3 bicycles, it doesn't matter. But this is damage. This is someone making on purpose, they're damaging personal property, not to say a physical person in the act. So LAPD needs to hold drivers more accountable in these accidents. A car versus a bicycle, who's more vulnerable? It's an obvious answer. The cyclists, we cannot continue to continuously be treated as criminals.
Thank you. If we could call up Justin Garcia and Alex Thompson and take the other 2 seats there. Go ahead, Stephen.
Stephen Box, I live in Hollywood. I'm a cyclist and co-founder of the Bike Riders Collective. There are a couple of things disturbing about this process. The first is that the particular report in question still hasn't made it to this committee. So Janice Hahn requested it when Deputy Chief Albanese was before the City Council. It was referred to this committee. Nobody showed up, and now it's in this committee. And there are representatives from LAPD here, but no report. So we're having a non-conversation about a non-report about an incident that took place, and we're still really drifting wide around it. But most disturbing in this entire process is that when it came to a report on LAPD training, the reference was to rules with regards to citing cyclists. Now, the purpose of the LAPD is not to cite people, it's to support public safety. So what's missing in this conversation is demonstrated there because it wasn't framed in the context of what can we do to train the LAPD to support the rights of cyclists, the safety of cyclists, and cycling as a transportation option. That's what's missing.
My name is Daniel. I'm a cyclist. I'm also an attorney. I rode my bike in from Glassell Park. One of the things that we've seen, obviously, in the Hummer incident and in other hit-and-run incidents is that if a cyclist does not have an independent witness, meaning not themselves, if somebody else happen to see it and give a statement to the police, that's the only time that this hit-and-run report is actually going to get anywhere. Seen it happen in Hummer incident. Well, what happens if I'm on the road and nobody's there? It's not going to get reported because they're not going to take the report, because you don't have an independent witness to corroborate your story. Where does that leave us? Look, it's reasonable to expect that LAPD is going to take a report when there's an incident, even if I don't have an independent witness. I'm the witness. It happened to me. I'm the victim. I think it's reasonable to expect they're going to take a report. And on top of that a detective is going to investigate thoroughly. And after that the city attorney or the district attorney is going to prosecute thoroughly should a criminal suspect be found. That's very reasonable to expect, but it's not happening right now. If LAPD is coming here unprepared for something very simple like reporting on recent incidents, we're gonna show up and we're gonna be there for Mandeville Canyon, which is coming up in July. We're gonna be there for Juan Castillo, who was killed on Glendale Boulevard. We're gonna be there for Roadblocks incident on Glendale Boulevard. We're gonna be there for the Hummer incident. We're gonna be there for my fiance's incident, who was hit. Who wasn't hit, but she was harassed by another driver. I will definitely be there. There are plenty of incidents coming up, and we're tired of the disrespect being shown by LAPD.
Thank you. So if we could ask Mark Peterson and Jeff Jacob to come up. And go ahead, Justin.
Justin Garcia from Profit Security Enterprises. I'm a cyclist. I'm just like everybody else here. We pay our taxes. I have a full-time job. I don't go to these rides all the time. But what's interesting to me is that on the 20th of this month, I heard on our message board that we have online that a 17-year-old girl was tackled by an LAPD officer off of her bike. This guy's trained. He's trained to fight criminals or protect us, but you're tackling a 17-year-old girl off of her bicycle. That just doesn't seem right. Besides that, their training is just not enough. Like, they don't know the basic rules that we have as cyclists. We can do left turns. We can take the lane if we need to. It's just they always tell us to go to the right. When they're in their helicopters telling us on our rides, all they do is just tell us, go to the right. We can do lots more things than that and be safe at the same time.
My name is Alex Thompson. I'm here with the Bike Riders Collective. I just want to do a credibility check on what we just heard from LAPD. They're saying that the cyclist hit the Hummer, and Damien made some good remarks about how you could actually discern that objectively. But I've got to ask, what's the motive for a cyclist to hit a Hummer? Because cyclists have huge disincentives not to hit Hummers. It hurts. Hummers don't really have disincentives to not hit cyclists, except if they think they're going to get in trouble for it, or if they have, basic human empathy, which it doesn't sound like this Hummer driver did. So that to me that's a red flag right there. The other thing is that I think they must have great writers working at LAPD, because there's some amazing spin going on here. They say this guy waited for LAPD when what we all heard was that he was pulled over with sirens with a bike underneath his car. This is just ridiculous. All of this is just spin. It's classic closing of ranks.
Jeff Jacoberger. I'm a bike rider, and anyone who's a bike rider knows that the most dangerous vehicle to go by you is an SUV, because there are lots of SUV drivers, particularly Hummers, which are very wide SUVs, who don't have any clue how wide their vehicle is and how close they're coming to bicycles. And I just think, usually the simplest explanation is the right explanation, and it just seems much more plausible that a Hummer went by somebody and sideswiped a bicyclist, that a bicyclist ran into the back of a big, huge Hummer. I mean, unless the bicyclist was drunk, that could possibly be, it's just not going to happen. And, just one observation about LAPD. I've been riding my bike where cars have come really dangerously close to me at very high rates of speed when there have been police officers present. And police officers, their training is not to give respect or protect the bicyclists on the streets of this city.
Mark Peterson, Bike Riders Collective. I want to tie this in a little bit to the licensing and safety class issue. If we're talking about giving safety classes to cyclists, not necessarily a bad idea, but if we're talking about giving classes to them and ignoring the other road users, it's a little bit like giving a gun safety class to someone holding a cap gun and ignoring the guy with the howitzer. The dangerous vehicles on the street, the vehicles that are classified as a deadly weapon, are the cars. So whereas it would be great to have safety lessons for cyclists, we're as we can see from this incident, we're focusing on cyclists being a menace on the streets, as opposed to people who arbitrarily run them over because they're maybe blocking their way for a few minutes. So I think we need to think about that instead of getting the cyclists out of the way for motorists. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I think, Commander, you've heard from a lot of them that there's a lot of confusion about this, and particularly mistrust with the department in this particular report, and I think it would be great to have some follow-up to that, and to be able to provide us with a written report on exactly what happened. I think the rest of the council, as I mentioned, would be interested in that as well, because I think this will be sent forward to council at one point. Okay.
Commander, could I ask you a question?
Just one more.
Mike? After listening to, the testimony here,
No?
I'm just trying to ferret out what's going on here. Is it true that the Hummer had no license plates?
I don't know that to be true, council member. What I can tell you is we can only go on what the statements are from the various witnesses and from the Hummer driver. We submit that information to the prosecutorial agency. In this case, it was the city attorney, and the city attorney makes a decision
I
whether or not there's
understand,
any
but the officer from our LAPD that went to the scene has a report. And in that report, did he say if the Hummer had a license plate or not?
I don't know if the license plate was on the vehicle.
Well, that's part of the report. That's part of the report. Do you have an answer to that? Come on up, officer. Because before this comes to council, I want answers to these questions. I don't want to go through this again unless, we still don't have clarity enough for us to intelligently deal with it. Sir?
Sir, the Hummer did have license plates. They were documented on the report.
They were. Your name again for the record?
Captain Allen.
Great. So, Captain Allen, there was license plates.
Yes, sir.
And it's on the report.
Yes, sir.
Secondly, the gentleman that was either sideswiped or ran into the back of the Hummer, I don't know anything here. I'm just hearing what I'm hearing. Now that you see him and heard that he had hurt his foot, was in the hospital, and maybe has some back issues, do we have a hospital report documenting what he just told us?
I'm not sure that the follow-up report contains that information.
Okay. We need that information before it comes to council.
We will provide that.
We can get that, council member. We can find out, have the detective that handled the case pull his file, provide the records, if you're interested in whether or not there's medical.
Sure.
I might remind you that some of those medical records are protected, and we would have to have a waiver from the injured party to release that information.
Well, I'm sure he was so public here right now that is a waiver in a public sense, and maybe you need to talk to him and see if he's willing to go officially onto the record and saying that. Third question I have was, some of them said that he didn't pull over to the next block to get out of their way, but he had a bicycle stuck underneath the Hummer. When our officer went to the scene, did he in his report verify that there was a bicycle stuck to the Hummer?
Not to my knowledge. That's the first I've heard that, council member. We'll look at it. We'll get the photographs, if there are photographs of that, and we'll provide that information.
Yeah, because my first suggestion is, I was here the last meeting, Ms. Skrull and I, we stayed here for 3 hours. We didn't go to the Laker parade. We stayed here. Before it comes to the next body, or it comes back to committee, in fact, I'm going to suggest to Ms. Skrull that it comes back to committee with more information and more detail before it goes to the council, so that we can be comfortable, put it online, let everybody interact, so when the day comes before the council, it's clearer than it is at this particular moment.
Councilman, we'll provide all the documents to the council, as well as any photographs that may exist, and so that we can get a clearer picture as to what occurred. You're hearing these versions from the folks that have testified, and like I said, we documented what was related to us, to the department.
Sure. No, and I appreciate that, but we need more information before we can have an opinion. At least I need more information.
I understand.
Thank you. Mr. Simmons, did you want to go ahead? Sorry, your card was in the public comments. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. My name is Matthew Simmons. I'm a cyclist, and I was present the night of this incident. My bike is one of the bikes that was ran over, and I think this is a perfect example of how little the LAPD knows about this incident, because I was there. The car did, in fact, not have plates on it. Later on, when we got a police report from the traffic officer, Officer Cho, they had put in the license plate number, which I'm sure they got from the VIN number or from the driver. but at the time of the incident, he did not have plates. And the fact that they don't know that just shows how inaccurate and incomplete their report on this incident is. And the reason it's inaccurate and incomplete is because I personally witnessed 5 or 6 different people attempt to give witness statements and were refused by Officer Cho and by the on-site, the watch commander who was there that night. I forget his name, but I've spoken to him also after the incident. And they refused to take people's statements. There was too many people there for them to take all the statements. It seemed like less than an important incident to them. They simply shuffled it off as these kids are probably being aggressive in the road or whatever. And he said to me, and I quote, "I've seen how you guys ride, and if you had done the same thing to me, I would have done the same thing to you." The officer reporting the incident showed a very distinct bias towards cyclists. I've had incidents with that same officer before where he's pulled bikes over that were merely just riding on the side of the road and chewed them out for many minutes and then not cited them. So there are officers who have a bias. This report is incomplete and inaccurate, and I don't think we'll get anywhere if the LAPD can't tell the truth.
Thank you. I know on this item, I'm looking to you, Mr. Rosendahl, it would be going to council with the next report. Do you want to hold it in committee until the written report comes in? Or?
I would like to, and since the officers heard a lot more than they were prepared to give us earlier in their testimony, I think to give the officers the ability to get us that data and to check it out and look at the photos and all of that, I think we should have a good, healthy discussion here before it goes to council, just as a matter of what the committee's purpose is. But it's up to you, Ms. Gruhl. You're the chair.
No, I mean, I think, I'm not sure it's going to go to council before my last day. So if I think there's still some unanswered questions, if you'd like to have it kind of vetted here again, that's probably not a bad idea, and then have it go to council.
If Mr. Parks agrees.
No, I think that would be best. One of the things I'd also like to ask, because so many people came up and had passed on a story they heard, if anybody's here that actually was at the scene, if you could give your name to the officers before they leave, then they can make sure you've been interviewed, or they could at least know who. I know, I know. Let me just go back. I know you know more than I do. I'm just saying, before you leave today, if you give them your name and number, so they can contact you no matter who you've talked to before. So anyone that was at the scene the night of the incident, not that you were told about it, not that you heard about it, but you physically are a witness, make sure you give the name and number. Thank you.
Just to follow up on your point, the police commission heard this?
Yeah.
Come on up to the mic, I want to hear it. Say your name again.
My name's Matthew Simmons. Yeah, we spoke in front of the police commission one morning, and then also we made a report to the Inspector General of the police department.
What did the police commission?
The police commission, they listened to our comments, and there was not a lot of response. But then we went to the Inspector General's office and made a actual complaint, and I have yet to hear back from them in any way.
Officers, if we could get that Inspector General's input back to committee here, maybe we can request, if I could, the Inspector General to come before this committee and to report on what report was given to him by the cyclist. That would help us in that discussion. Also, when you said photos were taken.
Yeah, in fact, you guys saw these photos, I think, at your city council meeting,
these
maybe?
Photos taken by the bicyclist?
Yeah, there's a photo of the bike under the Hummer with the cops
And
there.
is there a photo of the Hummer without license plates?
Yes. That would be really easy to prove that they don't know anything about this incident, because the photos show that it has no plates on it.
Did the police have those photos?
The police have seen those photos. In fact, yep, here's a photo right here, if you'd like to see it.
No, I'd like you to print them out.
Yeah, we have prints, yeah.
Print them out and give them to the officers so they can analyze that before we bring it back to you.
I'd be happy to do that for you.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we'll hold that in committee for the report back, Commander, on that. I think if we could, I know we're going to go to item 7. We do have a lot of speaker cards on that. But on item number 6, I think if just the department real quick could let us know on that TMO on the $250,000 each year for the 5 years. And then we'll go to item 7.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Eddie Guerrero, and I'm the Department of Transportation's primary contact for scoping and reviewing traffic impact analysis for development projects and planning in the western and southern communities of the city. My initial indication was that the question was before the committee on whether or not DOT supported using West LA specific plan funding for this specific TDM project that a grant application was filed for, which DOT does. But then I was also informed that there might be some question on whether or not this was some kind of discretionary use of the funding. And so
I just want to make sure that in this expenditure of $1 million, is it something that is a contract, an obligation? Is it discretionary by the council office? And what I'm concerned about is that within a week, there'll be another council member there as to whether that's been vetted or those issues. That's what my big concern is.
Well, all I can tell you is that this particular fund does have an account set up for this particular type of use. So in the terms of discretion, it's not that this portion of money is being transferred from any other account within the fund. This specific account is.
No, what I meant discretion is that there's no obligation to spend this money except that the motion is offering it up to be spent. It's not a contract. I'm not saying.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay,
that is
so
correct.
the
Correct.
discretion of the office is saying use this money for this use.
Well, like I said, the fund allows for certain percentages of use. Yeah, and
But
so.
it's no contract or obligation.
Right, that
The
is
motion directs its use.
That is correct.
All I'm saying is it's 7 days before there's a new council member. Has that in any way been discussed? Because you're allocating about $1 million of funds that new person might have access to, and has that been at least discussed before this week is over? That's all I'm wondering.
If that has taken place, I personally wouldn't be aware of it, so I would have to report back.
So I think it has in there that there's a grant application on the timing, and we could, I don't think it'll go to council before Mr. Koretz comes on board.
No, it's scheduled for Friday.
Oh, it is? Is there a...
The council officers here can probably respond to
Oh, I'm
that.
sorry.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Catherine Hennigan from Councilmember Weiss's office. We do have 100% community support, CD11 support, DOT support. This has been a joint effort with the Chamber of Commerce. We have some of our property owners and business owners here today. So we've done a lot of work, and everybody's on the same page on this.
Let me just make sure, because I did second the motion, and it is a joint fund that 11 and 5 have together. I saw no problem with it, because that's what it's used for. But has anybody reached out to Paul Koretz to see if he's in favor of this or not, considering it's a week away?
Yeah, I can't speak for Paul Koretz, but I know that it's been well received by the candidates when the election was
During that
in progress.
process.
Yes,
Including Mr. Koretz.
yes.
So we'll just touch base with him too before
Yeah,
Friday,
no,
just to
of
make
course. I do
100%
not.
sure. Not that I don't.
Thank
I trust her. Her brother works for me, so, I think she's...
Yeah,
Or I won't hold that against you, right? Okay, so we'll move approval. Yes. Okay. Go back to item number 7, and I assume the speakers would like to speak after the presentation by the department. So we'd asked during the last time that they would direct them to come back to discuss the outreach particularly. And that's what we're focusing on today for those of you that hear speakers, is how they're going to do outreach to ensure participation. So we're going to focus your comments and your comments as well on what the outreach plan purports to be.
Good afternoon. My name is Helen Bibas. I'm with the Los Angeles City Planning Department. We submitted a written report of about 3 pages only today. We didn't have time to submit it in advance, so the public probably hasn't seen it yet, but it's definitely posted in our council file search and so forth, so other copies will be made available. We, in that report, reiterated what we discussed last week, which is essentially the whole bicycle plan outreach process. We started that process last year with 4 workshops that were conducted throughout the city in the San Fernando Valley, the Port area, the South and Central and West LA area as well. We followed up with a few meetings to several organizations that so requested, and we made extensive use of our web site, which is LA Bike Plan, and I encourage everybody to continue consulting it. The consultant developed a survey to collect comments and suggestions from the public, and overall, in that phase alone, we received about 1,000 such surveys and comment cards. We expect to have 4 additional workshops in the summer, hopefully early in August. We have not set the date yet. It will be contingent upon us completing the draft plan, collecting all the comments from the technical advisory committee members as well as the city family. We will have a final draft hopefully by the end of July. That's the target date. Everybody will be notified of the plan availability, and we will then conduct again public workshops in the same manner that we did last time, probably in mid-August, unless we hear otherwise. I also want to point out that we did, because we are very much aware of the delay and the expectations from the public, we did release part of that draft plan, which are mostly the maps, which show the routes that we presented last week. And those are available also on our website in high and low resolution, so people can both consult them and download them if they wish to. We have hard copies of those maps in all the council offices, field offices of the council offices, and regional libraries, as well as department, transportation department and city planning departments locations. I'd like to point out that this has been, despite all the criticism, a very successful exercise. We've recorded up to 5,000 hits on LA Bike Plan website since we published the maps, and that's only in a 10-day period. So I think that speaks for itself. We will have also a meeting, as we explained in this letter, in July, probably, if the Bicycle Advisory Committee so sets up the date and calls it in. So we will do that as well. And that's, then we will have the whole legislative process start probably in September, which means the Planning Commission, the Transportation Commission, and so forth.
I should note that with the Bicycle Advisory Committee, we did mention to them at the last committee meeting that they were welcome to have a special meeting, that staff would be there to support them, to deal just with the bicycle plan, and they could call that. Their next regular meeting is scheduled for the first week of August, so we may have, it may be just around the right time, but we have provided, committed to providing support to the BAC to have a meeting dedicated just to the bicycle plan.
And I know you said you were going to have some public hearings, different places and so forth, but I think it had been asked last time to have one kind of workshop. I don't, what day, are you guys planning that to have where?
We're planning 4 public workshops, just like we did the last time. There'll be a follow-up that are conducted by the consultant team. We've also hoped to be able to attend the neighborhood councils and provide presentations, parallel presentations. But again, these are items we don't have budget for, so they'll be staff supported if we have the resources to do so.
I think also check with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, because they have numerous kind of all-day, half-day sessions that they're doing that you can piggyback on with them to ensure you kind of reach out to all of them.
We've been working with Carolyn Jackson in our department to reach the neighborhood councils and how best to deal with this.
I learned something yesterday, and I'm sure you all know this. I met with a couple of my captains from the West LA division. I have 2 divisions, Pacific Division, West LA division. And they mentioned that in each division they have a bicycle a group, bicyclists, not motorcyclists, but bicyclists, and that they are quite familiar with, at least in their areas, their streets. Suggestion, you contact whoever is in charge of the bicycle program in the LAPD, and bring into the room, into the discussion, those LAPD officers that as part of their assignment is riding a bicycle. I think they might give us some of the same insights that we hear the cyclists in the room give us If anybody knows the road, it's the person who rides a bicycle. I mean, I know the road as a car driver, but that is nothing compared to what a cyclist experiences. And when they mentioned that to me, I then immediately asked them, I challenged them to take my 11th district and map it out from their perspective, and so that you get the police input. So I would suggest we think about that citywide and bring them into the mix, into the room. And I wouldn't even mind them sitting in the same room with the bicyclists so that we can get beyond this insane, what doesn't seem to be clear appreciation of each other. But I can tell you the LAPD cyclists have an appreciation of cyclists because they understand that. And that would be helpful to close that credibility gap.
Anything else y'all would like to add before
We
we
do
hear from
work,
the-
DOT does work with the Traffic Coordination Unit and have worked with them in the past, and we can certainly make that contact.
Thank you. Then we're going to have our public comment. Again, we're talking about the outreach specifically. We did talk about the plan last week, but outreach efforts here. Damian Newton, for someone who just filled out a card but no name on it. So if I don't call your name, then you know that's you. Ian Marchbanks, Andres Tang, Alan Alessio. The first four. It'll be followed by Stephen Box, Arisha Smolarski, Marion Dodge, and Bernadette Soder. And so when someone vacates, if you wouldn't mind coming up, that would help us go through.
Real quickly, and just like any large... Damian Newton from Fairfax. Like any large organization, you're going to find that different people have different experiences with different other people. The Pacific Division bike cops worked with me and some other people on Bologna Creek issues, and they were fantastic. And I think things have improved there in the past year. I haven't heard of any high-profile incidents. But that being said, the main outreach that a lot of people think of as outreach is the workshops that happen. They're the things that they can go to. They can see the maps, big maps, not little things on their computer screens. And what we're hearing is there's going to be the same four places as last time, which was something that got panned by a lot of cyclists, the locations. For example, there wasn't one on the east side. And the other point on that is, last week you asked the room how many people had been to those meetings, and like a handful of hands went up. I know me and Stephen and a couple others. But that was like almost 50 people that found it more convenient to bike to City Hall at 8 in the morning on a weekday than to get to these meetings. So you might want to look at those locations again, and maybe even try to find a way to get funding for a couple more meetings.
So, Michelle, I think on the east side, that was one that we were interested in making sure that the east side was represented. So,
Again, the contract is for $450,000. We don't have additional funds to contribute to this. You know, if we have one on the east side, we have to move one of the other ones. So we can work with you.
why don't you let us know how much it cost for just one meeting that the consultant would go to? I would think we could find that and do that.
We'll do that.
Great. Well, that sounds like you got that sorted
Ian,
out.
I know and Andres, I called your name. Are you coming up on this item? Okay, come on up. We're just trying to help speed this up because I think we're here.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say that's great that that got addressed, because the east side is a very challenging area as well. So, you know, getting across town is a very important issue. You know, people are basically, you know, going part of the way across town, all the way across town. So we need to have continuous bike routes going from one side of the city to the other. And so that's, you know, I certainly think has to be a part of the way that we're looking at all of these smaller local meetings, is how do you, you know, where are people going, and how do you, you know, make every trip across town of 5 miles a safe one. So with regard to Councilmember Rosenthal's comment about the cycling police officers, that was actually a suggestion that was made by Senior Lead Officer Wicks at Pacific Division, who's, you know, a very proactive and very intelligent man. That we work with him not only for officer education, but as well as with these, you know, same issues. So I just wanted to thank you for your comment on that, and you know, I hope we can really, you know, in a larger way, you know, bring all of these issues into a communication between the cyclists, between the, you know, the officer cyclists, and between the LAPD at large, because I think they would have a lot to contribute.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Andres.
Hi, my name is Andres Stein, and I'm a cyclist in Los Angeles. For the bike plan, it's pretty really cool, actually, because I recently came back from Portland, and it's the most bike-friendliest place in the entire world. I was blown away. There's a bike rack at every single corner, and that's no joke. There's bike maps, there's bike routes, there's bike-friendly people, cars wait for you, the police help you out. Everybody in Portland loves bikes. That's all I really wanted to say is just, I'm asking LA, we need to beat Portland. We need to get on our game and just jump on top of that. We need to be the most bike-friendliest place in the entire earth. Thank you.
Thank you. Arisha. And if, gentlemen, if I don't mind to kick you out, but would you mind, we'll bring up the next two. Stephen Fox, Marion Dodge. Go ahead, Arisha.
Okay, my name is Arisha with LACBC. Last week you asked for a report about the outreach plan. While that is important, the actual product is what seems to be the most relevant, because better outreach, we get better product. So we need you to use your leadership, council members, to direct DOT and planning to ensure that there are as many, if not more, proposed bike lane mileage in the current bike plan as compared to the 1996 plan. As far as I'm aware, it actually may be illegal to downgrade the plan without a complete environmental review. So I'm asking you guys to really take that leadership and make this plan as good as it can be. I mean, Councilmember Gruhl, wouldn't you like to see Ventura Boulevard, currently deemed as infeasible, become striped with bike lanes for the safety of all its users? And Rosendahl, Centinela, and Bundy are also deemed infeasible, but that's a major connectivity between two streets that have bike lanes. Wouldn't you like to see that have bike lanes? So we need you, council members, to use your leadership to direct planning on DOT to not take any more steps backwards, but to go forwards and maintain the amount of mileage that was currently in the 96 plan and increase that, if not maintain it, in this current plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan. And we'll replace Bernadette. Has that come on up? Okay, go ahead, Alan.
Alan Alessio. I'd like to go ahead and reaffirm that what Alicia said. We need to work with the 96 plan and build up from that. The current plan is a step back. We can't have that. We need to go forward. We need to go with an aggressive plan. You introduced Sharrows in 96. 13 years later, it's still in an introduction phase. You know, it's like we could do a lot better than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Go.
Ladies.
Good afternoon. My name is Marion Dodge. I'm president of the Los Feliz Improvement Association. We encourage and support bicycles for commuting and for recreational use. However, we're concerned still, as we said before, about the use of bikes on trails in city parks. There's a municipal ordinance prohibiting that, and we support retaining that city ordinance. And you will recall that at the last meeting I told you my efforts to get the contract, and you requested Carolyn Jackson to get the contract for me. I have nothing except a paper trail of my attempt to get the contract beginning on May 17th, and the last communication I had actually was at the Tom LaBonge's summer solstice hike. And Jordan, who is here tonight, gave me an email link with a contract number, and it said no search results found. So okay. I am still.
I think we asked last time for them. Can you present? Will you just make sure she gets that contract? Okay.
You want to respond?
Okay.
Hi.
Carolyn Jackson, LADOT, Council Liaison, Neighborhood Council Liaison. I did, in fact, respond to Ms. Dodge, and she wrote back to me. She wrote back that she understood and she agreed. It is my understanding that the contract is between the city and Alta. The city does not have a contract with Osprey. That is a private document between Osprey and Alta. The city does not have the right to release that to the public. I discussed it with our city attorney briefly today. She said it is not clearly a black and white case, and we would talk later. I did email Ms. Dodge, and I believe we communicated as recently as last Thursday on this, and you said you understood, so I'm a little.
Well, and we can ask the city attorney, but it would if the money that is going to Osprey is city money.
I know, I don't, that's the gray area.
It should be
known
to everybody.
We discussed it internally, we might agree with you, but I don't know that that's the law. I just have to find out.
Well, I explained that if I couldn't get the Osprey contract, then I would like a copy of the Alta contract.
I didn't have
we will make
I
sure
didn't have that communication, but
To make sure she get that. But I would, again, not that I'm not a lawyer, but I think any city money in a contract, unless it is it's public.
I'll
public.
work with planning to get her a copy.
You let me know if they're not allowing us to do that, because I think that any contract that is part of that should be allowed.
I'll be happy to communicate
for those items that are consistent with the city's money being put in it. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead. Yes, you're welcome. Then if I could ask Bernadette and Jeff Jacoberger. Bernadette's already here.
Hi.
Jeff Jacoberger and Steve Atano.
Good afternoon. I'm Bernadette Soder. I'm with the Greater Griffith Park Neighborhood Council. Regarding conducting this process in a way to ensure full public participation, as a remedy, it's been recommended that the Los Angeles Bicycle Advisory Committee play a lead role on the public's behalf. I need to call to your attention that I attended a spring meeting of the LABAC at which agendized was a discussion of whether or not and how to begin outreach to neighborhood councils by that body. That agenda item was tabled. I don't know if it has yet been discussed, but I do wish to point out the bicycle plan is now, and outreach by transportation to neighborhood councils now will be necessary to ensure complete public participation and buy-in. A fundamental issue for many of us remains that transportation's planning process seeks to set policy within the borders of the city's parks. The Recreation and Parks Department just completed a citywide needs assessment on recreational policy, and I believe that setting recreational policy outside the framework of the Rec and Parks Department is not the right way to go, and I wish to point that out. If you will accept it, I have 2 attempts to communicate with Transportation Department, one from our neighborhood council and one from a residents association, asking to be briefed on this process that went unacknowledged.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go back over here to Stephen, because you've been, Stephen
Box, I live in Hollywood. I'm a cyclist, co-founder of the Bike Riders Collective. I thought last week when we had the Transportation Committee that the direction was that the consultant would show up and account for some aspect of this particular plan. So should we pause here and do a do-over? And because I think the issue there was the accountability, because as you hear, Alta hired Osprey, and then there was another one that was hired to do this, another one hired to do that, and the bottom line is the deadline has come and gone, and there's been an extension, and who's in charge? And I'd like to see the engineer of this train, because it's runaway at this point in time. The contract was signed with someone who lives in Berkeley. They're not here. I'm not sorry, Berkeley, Portland, and they're not here. And I got to suggest that there's a failure to really have some significant oversight. It's charming that the BAC has been given the opportunity to call a special meeting in order to participate in this process, but seriously, that long ago passed, and so we're about to engage in the same 4 meetings in the 4 wrong places process that we did last year. You see more people here protesting than you do at the events themselves.
And Stephen, if you have suggestions on other locations that we should do it at, if the location itself and the geographic area is not the right one, then please let us know, and we will do that. Maybe they can let us know on the particular consultant coming down and doing that. But I think if you, just like the East LA one was suggested, we've indicated now we want to have one at East LA. So if you have a suggestion specifically on those areas that we did not, that they did not go to, that would be helpful. Thank you. Go ahead. Doesn't matter. We do one.
Jeff Jacoberger, I'm chair of the Transportation Committee of the
Hold on
City.
just 2 seconds. We hold his time. Is Jim McQuiston still here? Oh, I'm sorry, Jim, right in front of me. Jim, why don't you come on up, and Justin Garcia.
Jeff Jacoberger with the Mid-City West Community Council, chair of our Transportation Committee. I don't think you can really separate outreach from the plan. And just for example, on the maps that have been distributed, particularly in my neighborhood, which is an older, congested area, just lots of things are shown as infeasible. And so it doesn't help to do outreach on a plan that doesn't allow me to get from my house at Hauser and San Vicente to Hollywood and Highland, or to Wilshire and Western, which are the closest metro stations, that even in the plans for the neighborhood don't have a route that connects to what will be subway stations at Wilshire and La Brea or Wilshire and Fairfax, that don't get me to the Grove or the Farmers Market or the Beverly Center or Cedars-Sinai or Pan Pacific Park or LACMA, or to the Target or any shopping center. I mean, it doesn't help to do outreach on a plan that doesn't go to any destinations. And also, the DOT and planning need to be working together. 8th Street is designated on the plan to be a bike-friendly street, but DOT has drafted traffic calming plans that would add a center turn lane on 8th Street that would utterly destroy 8th Street as a bikeable street, because it would force, now there's nice wide traffic lanes where bikes and cars can coexist, but they've drawn plans to narrow the traffic lane in such a way that bikes and cars can't coexist, and it becomes a very bike-hostile street. And, I don't know what the answer is, but I just think we need to slow down and make sure we get a good plan rather than rushing to get a plan completed quickly.
Yeah. And our intent in trying to do this was it had been a really long time, is to at least know where the plan was and at least know where we were in status, and then kind of push them to at least start getting it out. And you're right, we want to do it right, not.
And just real quickly, I think Dunn is planning on having its neighborhood council congress in October, and that might be an opportunity to first bring a whole bunch of maps and have a whole bunch of neighborhood council people who know the real local streets in their neighborhood of providing real input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
My name is Stevie Tano. I'm a citizen. I was really excited when the Bike Master Plan came out, but then I started looking at it and reading through it, and then one of the things that became really obvious to me was that the people who wrote this plan really thought McCain and the Republicans were going to get reelected. Come on. I mean, where is recognition that what the citizens of our nation want is change? What I see in the master plan is something going back and responding to the bureaucracies of the past. We need to look at the solutions that face the future. I mean, the reality is, we do things like add a couple of lanes to 405. What is that going to do? Nothing. Pico Olympic, what's that going to do? Very little. The problem is really, the solution is right in front of us: less cars. We don't need to move them faster. We need to get them off the road. We need to provide other means of getting around our city. The bicycle master plan reflects one very clear philosophy. Bicycles are not a viable means of transportation. I think the major problem with the bicycle master plan is it's got the wrong name. We should call it the I don't give a damn about bicycles master plan. Thank you.
If I could ask Alex Thompson and Mark Peterson to come up. Go ahead.
Justin Garcia, Pro Security Enterprises. This is basically what I have to say. We as bicyclists, we're gonna be here no matter who's in front of us, no matter who's behind us. My sister, less than 2 months ago in San Francisco, was hit by the minibus, and 2 months later now she's back on her bike. It's not a thing where she had a choice. She has no choice but to ride her bicycle. Many of us don't have a choice, and we're gonna fight for a good plan, for the rights that we need, no matter who's riding it, no matter who is riding it, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Jim?
Jim McQuiston. I am concerned, of course, with the city budget, but as you well know, I get into many, many things. And the astonishing thing is that no one has really come to me about the Transportation Master Plan. I'm really stunned about that because I was involved with the framework, and the framework, of course, does have the Transportation Plan in it. As far as planning these meetings are concerned, it's more or less a dog and pony show. We have decided what's good for you, take a look at it, and give us your thoughts, but that's about as far as it goes. I, you might say as a consultant who is supposed to know everything, do share that feeling that maybe I know more than the average person. But on the other hand, if we're having meetings and spending city money, it has to have a purpose. And I don't really see the purpose for this. What we need is intimate conversation, long-term conversation, back-and-forth conversation with these people who do know something. I think Mr. Rosenthal's version of getting the police, bikers involved is very, very good. We also have bikers in the bids They are a bicycle patrol. They're out every day, and they would be excellent to get in and get into this. So that's the people that I really think have been left out of these things. And before we go any farther, I think we ought to say, hey, wait a minute, let's not spend the money on these meetings until we have these other meetings with these other people.
Thank you.
Alex Thompson, Bike Riders Collective. While we were talking about this item, I used my trusty iPhone to find a photo here showing a Hummer parked on top of a bicycle with no plate. So whatever these guys said over here, they didn't know what they were saying. And I as council people, I think it's your responsibility to find out why they're testifying that they know something that they don't know, because this is a fact.
Get them those pictures.
We just emailed them. Apple. I want to echo the last speaker's comments. I think that these meetings were completely a dog and pony show, and this bicycle master plan process has been a failure at every level from the very beginning. As Risha said, it's a step backward from the 2002 and 1996 plans, and with $67,000 of $450,000 in the plan spent on outreach, it was abysmal. I received no notification. As the co-founder of the largest bike organization in West LA, I received no notification. I got notification third hand. So I would ask you guys to continue investigating who is responsible for what has gone wrong with this process, and empower a body of citizen cyclists to conduct immediate and ongoing oversight of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark? Mr. Peterson?
Mark Peterson, Bike Riders Collective. As far as outreach is concerned, we're preaching to the converted. We're talking to cyclists, and yet we're still treating cycling as a niche activity, as evidenced by the plan. I mean, we hear there's no room for bikes. We need to squeeze them in wherever we can. In New York City, 200 miles of on-street facilities have been added in the last 3 years, and there's been a 35% increase in commuter cycling between 2007 and 2008.
What percentage?
35%. And speaking of the 405, our city right now is in the process of dumping more than $700 million into a 10-mile extension of a single freeway, yet we have 100th of that for the entire bicycle plan. My understanding is that we have 100th of that for the entire city of LA. What we really need are transportation solutions, not bike solutions. We need something that's going to scale up for the future and not destroy our neighborhoods in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl, that was our last speaker. Oh, okay.
No, seriously.
Should I call you the real name, Don?
Did he really? We're talking about location for the meetings. I got a great location online. Let's set up a forum, even if it's Google Groups or something, run by the LA DOT, use their mapping, application, and get a conversation going online and outreach. I mean, we're talking about, I don't know how much the budget was for outreach. We can build a website for like 20 grand or even less, 10 grand, Google Groups, whatever, and reach everybody over the process of, I don't know, how long would it take to reach out to all the different little websites that are out there, community websites? How much does that cost? Not very much. We don't have to have special meetings. We don't have to have people showing up, taking time out of their day, volunteering to show up. They can make comments anytime they want. Seriously, let's get the LADOT active and online when it comes to bicycle issues, because we're all online. We're ready to go.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon. I turned in a card and my name was never called, so is it all right if I speak really quick?
What's your name?
Sure. Nicole Arneson.
You put it in public comment.
Oh, okay.
So, which is general comment after everything, so.
Okay.
No problem.
Well, I just wanted to speak about the bike lanes and the bike master plan, and just the fact that there are not going to be an increase in bike lanes when we have an increase in riders, and it's a perfect solution to the problem with transportation, and we have people that are willing to ride, and there are safe routes, but they don't connect, and to get people to just continue riding and do it safely, I think it's very important that we have the council support LADOT and help make this happen. So, I mean, I haven't done a lot of research, but paint and signage seems like a very economical solution to get communication to drivers so that they're aware, and they're, you know, it's not going to change very much. It just needs to help with our safety and keep people riding.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Michelle, I do think using the internet, again, doesn't require anyone getting on a bicycle or car or having to go to a meeting, but will that be part of the outreach?
It already is. We actually, within the RFP and the scope of work that the consultant bid on, was to build a website that allowed for online interactive mapping as well as comments. They also developed a survey that went out, and I believe Ellen referred to it earlier, that we've had, since the maps have gone out, we've had 5,000 hits on that. So it's there. There's an opportunity to do that. I think what Mr. Roadblock is talking about is us providing additional outreach to the public. Well, we'd like to do more and be able to do more. We do have a limited amount of funds to be able to do what we can do. But
what does it cost on the internet part of it? I guess that's my question, is if there are other internet accessibility items that you can do.
Well, we have a link on our website. There's a link on the DOT website, bicyclella.org. We have a link on ours. It's on the front page, and we note, if anybody goes to our front page, there's a note on the bike plan, and to click on it, and it'll take you right to the link. Do you guys have one on your website as well?
Yes.
But is that interactive? Is it an ability for them to comment back and forth, or to have, you know?
It's not a chat room where they can talk together. It's an opportunity for them to provide public comment, much as they do here verbally. They can provide public comment. By providing comments, they can also go to the mapping data and provide map. So what's the
timeline as far as the maps were just released, as far as the rest of the documentation, and the question about that the consultant is not here today, as to when they're going to finish their project?
Well, with the consultant, actually.
The consultant is here.
He is actually here today.
Okay.
We have the draft.
That would have been helpful to know from the beginning of having him come up to the beginning of this. So
the draft document was provided to staff on Monday. We have circulated it to the city family. I mean, it's just gone to DOT today, to the city family, to go ahead and go through the document. I think Ellen mentioned that it's going to go to the Technical Advisory Committee. Was the email to the Technical Advisory Committee this week?
Correct. Last Sunday, and I already got some comments from those members.
So it's in process. We're getting very close, and I think we're very close to the public meetings, which would be the last week of July or the first week of August. But you do need to note that while we have a number of cyclists here that are frustrated and angry, these are not the only cyclists in Los Angeles, and they're not the only type of cyclists in Los Angeles. We have mountain bicyclists, we have grandmothers who want to ride, we have 8-year-olds who want to ride, and we're trying to serve a large number of people with what we're doing. Granted, I'd love to see more bicycle lanes. I'd love to see bicycle lanes on Ventura Boulevard, but it gets to an issue of right-of-way and what will go. If we are to put bicycle lanes on Ventura Boulevard, we need to have somebody tell us that the parking's going to go or a travel lane's going to go. So, again, we're a city of trade-offs. We do have under 1% of the total population rides a bike for transportation now as measured by the census, although I believe the census numbers are low. But again, how do we contend with 40,000 cars that go through a typical intersection? And I'm not defending that and saying that's the way to go. We are at build-out. So which trade-offs are we going to make? And again, those are not staff-level decisions.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's just, there just seems to be so much desire to make input and be part of the process that, from my perspective, I believe that the done thing is going to happen in October. I don't want to run forward with putting this out there in the street at this point. If I had my druthers, I'd take a deep breath, I'd take more input from what you heard from people here in the room, and go a little slower on this, and let's take it into the fall. I had said at the last meeting, there's going to be a change in the guard. This committee will not be the same members that are sitting here today. We're going to lose our great chair, who's provided great leadership. We'll have a new chair, we'll have members, and we'll be reconstituted more or less after Labor Day, when the council comes full steam ahead. So my suggestion is that we continue this until the fall, then listen to what we heard here today, and maybe put a chat forum online somehow or another. Have the consultant give us a report. Look, we love Portland. The guy mentioned how beautiful Portland was, but well, whatever Portland was. it was $400,000 we've already spent out of 500 and something. I obviously want to know what we spent it on, what we got out of it, and how much money we have left, and what we can do with flexibility with it. I don't appreciate you having to take all the brunt of the issues here. And what I would like to see happen is, this has been healthy. Last week was a great meeting. This is a good meeting. I even learned a lot about that accident that I never got any clarity on. And I think we don't need...
That's your question. Are you suggesting, I mean, they have kind of
We can slow down.
They started the plan, I mean...
Slow down.
But I think that, I still think it's going to come, what they're going to do is public hearings, but they're going to come back then in the fall for further review. But if we lose a couple of months of, that they've already kind of put forward and I think scheduled to go forward.
Maybe they could clearly point out, not today's meeting, I must be gone at this point, in the next meeting of this committee, give us your schedule of what you would like to have happen over what period of time, and in that discussion we can decide, look, if this has been going on since 1996, I frankly have no problem revisiting it with a deep breath in the fall and setting up a schedule that meets everybody's needs and that brings in neighborhood councils, brings in the LAPD, brings in the bid cops, brings in all kinds of people into the mix so that we can have a more healthy discussion. I really don't want to sit on this committee and have bicyclists tell me their input wasn't taken, even if it was taken and we didn't hear it, those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. I'd like to have, I don't know the urgency why July and August are as critical as, say, September and October, unless somebody can explain that to me here. Why we couldn't.
We are responding to the...
180 days down the road. Let's restudy 180 days.
I don't want to restudy anything. I just want to get a clear set of timetables and locations and situations. And if it makes sense right now, great. It's my instincts from what I've experienced in the last couple of meetings that it's not like we have to act on it today. But that's just my personal opinion.
Whatever your committee's agenda, decision today on when you want to agendize this, I just want to let you know that I've been working on an email list of everyone who's expressed an interest in being notified on bike issues. I'm almost done with it, and anyone that's here today that wants to be added to it, if they'll just see me right after the meeting, I'll be happy to do so. My list will be accessible to the planning department, who's actually the lead on the bike plan.
Great, and I'd like to know, Michelle, what your reaction is and what your reaction to what I just said.
Well, we have been rushing and we have been pushing, and I know we've pushed also, and we have been turning around documents really quickly, and some of us have been working on these as we sit at the veterinarians with our cats, have been going through these documents trying to get things out and get this done. We can slow things down and do additional outreach, but you need to recognize if we go on furlough, we're not going to have as much staff time to devote to this as well. We can do public meetings. We can follow up and do that. I've actually just sent Alta an email and asked for a cost estimate, what it costs to do additional meetings with them there. On the bike-friendly streets that they've recommended, we've taken their word on the streets that those are the best network. And you should know that the folks that are working Alta here in Los Angeles are bicyclists who've actively worked. And Matt, who's been leading up the team here in Los Angeles, worked for the LACBC for a number of years and worked for Metro as well, doing bike, and his master's thesis is involved in bicycle parking. So he knows bicycling issues in Los Angeles. These are not folks who don't understand the city and to deal with it. That said, we do have less arterials designated for bicycle lanes. I do think we have a good plan. It's not out yet, and what we have is a map that's out. We don't have an overall document. We have a lot of policies as well as other information that are going to support and make the city better for bicycling. And there's no question in my mind that this will be the best plan we've ever produced in Los Angeles.
So my thought is, the reason to at least, the report's been finished, and the draft has at least been a reminder.
We have the final.
There is going to be changes, and I think from the people that are here today, there clearly are going to be recommendations they want to make. Mm-hmm. Let's get it out there and have them comment on it, whether they like it or not. There may be people, Stephen Box may not like necessarily everything that's in it, but he's going to give us his comments on a real document that, again, we may or may not like. But my reason for kind of pushing it out into transparency in public was to have that discussion. I think that when in September, that by that time they will have done some outreach, and you can find out if there's been enough outreach. I'm sure that our friends here will say, will come and have a say to that either it has or has not, or here's some other ways that we need to do that, and that would be important to do it, if that's okay with you.
I completely agree that we need to get the document out. Having the maps out there on their own, they're not a standalone document. Right. It's an integral, and it'd be great to have the whole piece out. And while I agree that a number of people in this room probably will not like it or see it as an incomplete document, it's still a pretty good document. It's going to move us into the next phase.
And then we look forward to their input and refining it.
And making change. The whole idea is it's never final until the council adopts what that plan is, and there are a lot of ways in which to get to that path. And so what I don't like, and I think I heard in the past has happened in the city, and not necessarily this one, but is there's a whole big document that has been done. It's finished. The city, and I'm not saying this is you all, but the city says, we worked so hard, we got all the input, we're sticking with what we got. We want to say, let's get it out there and have it be an evolving document that involves the community. That's really important.
Fair enough.
Okay. Okay. That will be the order. If you could send to us and the members of the committee as to, here are the dates, here's where we're planning to do it, here's what we found out about East Los Angeles, here's how much it would cost. Any other suggestions that came up today on better ways to use the internet, we should include in that as well. Okay. And so that we'll hold that item in committee. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item, I think that's our last item before we go to public comment.
Public comment.
Public comment. Okay.
That's it?
Yes, public comment. Yeah. So Damian Newton, roadblock. David Shapiro. What?
The department also had a public comment.
Do you want to do that first, or you? Oh.
Perhaps after this round that you called that.
Damien.
A very brief history lesson. Last March, Streets Blog had been going for about a month, and I approached the outgoing chair of the Transportation Committee and asked her if she would do an interview with us for a video we were shooting on the Orange Line. It was the first street film placed in Los Angeles. It's been viewed over 10,000 times. And people that do things for street films generally get a T-shirt. I have been holding on to it because I didn't want to appear to be improperly lobbying you, but since this is your last meeting as Transportation Committee Chair, and I haven't lobbied the Comptroller's office once since I've been here yet, I brought your T-shirt. It says it's a large, it shrinks in the wash, so, you know, when the Comptroller's office is doing...
I am not offended it's a large, it's okay, it's good for me.
When the Comptroller's office is doing its Car-Free Fridays, Ride with the Bike Coalition, I'm sure very soon you'll have a official Los Angeles Street Films T-shirt, and I'll bring it up in my 5 seconds.
Thank you. And just because I'm going across the street, it does not mean I'm not going to look at these issues as the controller of the city of Los Angeles. So, and continue to engage us on those issues. Because I think the department particularly asked that I audit them on bicycle issues. Yeah. Thank you. That's fabulous. Thank you.
I think what we're okay. So when I hear Miss Mowry, when she's talking about the census numbers on how many bicycle riders we have in the city, that's telling me that we're looking at the current situation. But what do we want to change the situation? So what I'm asking you, not just as a bicycle rider, but as a pedestrian and a citizen of Los Angeles, is that I don't know how it's going to be done, but can we get a directive out there that says to the LADOT, the entire organization, that says, let's look at number of people moved, not number of vehicles moved. There doesn't seem to be that kind of a directive going on, and that's why we're just in this mess of cars dominating our streets and traffic and all that madness. If we can just, I don't know how that's going to happen, but is there a way we can change the directive of the LADOT to look at people moved, not vehicles moved?
Hi, before I begin, could I, if it's proper, if the clerk would hand you, the three of you, my submission of today? I gave her. You have them?
Yes.
Good. Thank you very much. I'm testifying, David Shapiro, as the founder, board member, and currently, because of the economy, driver-owner within the United Independent Taxi Framework. The report I've done is in answer to the mayor of Santa Monica and Councilman McCown there, because they are doing a study whether or not they're going to do a reordinancing.
Ian, come on up.
And it's the best and important thinking of all my 32 years put in writing. It's taken me weeks and weeks and weeks. And I think it would be a model, if I could just finish, I would appreciate, a model for every city anywhere. Okay. And I really hope that you and the mayor will take it very seriously. I would ask that, because I want very much to be of help as you cope with the problems of taxis, drivers, and riders, that I could be readmitted to the policy-making arena, which everyone knows I've been pretty much excluded from. And I hope that the writing I've done will give me entry. You'll see.
And it's very comprehensive, and I apologize. If you could conclude, because both of these,
okay, I will, and I understand that. Second important point would be Nelson Nydorf. I and Latwa, Betty Hung have warned Santa Monica, warned you about spending taxpayer dollars on them. And the last is, I'm really shocked that for the first time in my 32 years of watching, the DOT commission is being skipped to hold hearings and do their own reporting. And I think the reason is, and I'm finishing, because the LA Taxi Workers Association has a better hearing from a majority of the commission than the taxi drivers have ever had since I organized them in the breakthrough of the organized crime monopoly, which lasted for 42 years. So I want to be taken seriously. They should be taken seriously. We should not have to come onto the streets.
Sorry, Mr. Shapiro, I do need to ask you to conclude because we've been trying to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ian and Ms. Taylor, if you could tell Ms. Taylor to come on up. Just go. You need to go walk to her. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to kind of address some of the comments that Ms. Mowry made. I think, it's great that she, is looking forward to, working with a diverse group of cyclists, not just the cyclists that are here, but, all of the cyclists that are, invested in a cycling infrastructure. I'd also like to point out, I work at a restaurant. It's not without a bit of irony that I coordinate off-site deliveries and catering, and I cycle to work. Well, last summer when gas hit $4 a gallon, I had my supervisor, my general manager, and 3 of the waiters start taking their bikes to work. And this summer, gas prices are lower, but they went out and got better bikes so that they could keep cycling.
Right.
They don't cycle as much because it's so dangerous out there. There's not a network of bike paths. There's not a network of safe bike streets. That's what's keeping them off the roads, and that's what's keeping them in their cars. I can promise you, if you put bike paths in your district, that all those people would bike to work, stop driving to work. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you. I'm Joan Taylor. If you remember, I came a few weeks ago to the committee, and I came to the planning committee as well as the budget committee and asked for a reform of the very wasteful program. And Ms. Gruhl, much depends upon your new position as to whether or not this reform takes place. I recognize that Tom LaBonge doesn't want to lose control of any of the money under his jurisdiction now, but this program is far too wasteful, and the needs of seniors for transportation are far too great to allow it to continue. Now, John Fong of the Department of Transportation has said that someone needs, and I hope it's someone on this committee, you need to get a council vote to change this program. As you know, there are presently 64 vans. We'll leave 34 of those alone. Let the tax-exempt sponsors continue their good work with many activities. But get rid of the 30 vans, 2 for each district, that take the seniors for taxi rides. John Fong has said, and I didn't write this down on your paper, but I hope you will jot it down perhaps yourself. The Dial-A-Ride currently could take every one of these seniors for their medical or grocery appointments or wherever they're going. The Dial-A-Ride could do it, and they could actually do it at great savings to the city. Right now, John Fong is, and unless you do this, unless you get the vote to the council, and remember, you're sponsoring 50% of this money is coming from the Department of Transportation. So you can't ignore the responsibility. So please get rid of these taxi vans. Remember, our seniors, right now, we get only one book of taxi van, commercial taxis, and that means $7 a week. Well, how far can you go in a taxi for $7? Next door. We've got to have more, and more of us increasingly need the transportation. And we're being cut back in other departments, so please help us on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sadat?
Yes, I did not put a speaker card, but if I can ask
Give it to me.
Rita Robinson to join us. And I'll let Rita go first.
We are extremely honored to congratulate our new controller in her new role that she is, but we're very saddened by the fact that she'll be leaving the Transportation Committee, and very saddened by the fact she'll be leaving the council, to be honest. However, myself, Amir, our entire staff of LADOT have just been extremely touched by I would just say by the attention that you've given the department and by the attention that you've given the issues of transportation that are far and wide, very, pro and con on every side, but the exemplary effort you've made as chair of the T Committee to try to bring the issues forward with your colleagues and to try to give us an opportunity for two sides of every story as well as a path for solution. So we're really proud of all the effort that you've given to us. I think we're all a little, we're kind of split in our feelings, that we're very happy and very sad at the same time, as we sure you are and your colleagues that are with you are. We're always happy when things go well, but we're always saddened if we're going to lose what we did have in the person. But in this case, I think we can be more joyous of the fact that you'll still be in the city family and you'll still be doing things that we hope will improve our city. We certainly need fresh eyes and fresh visions to the issues that confront us. They are becoming more complex, and not only complex, I just think that they get so much more contentious. And I think what we need is more collaborative effort in these areas to try to come together, and whether they're communities and individuals and constituents, but we need as a city family to come together with a single purpose, because if we are divided into 16 different ways past Sunday, we will never be able to come together as a city to make improvements, and we certainly are in a most challenging time. And in every family, when there are challenges in a family, whether it be a death or illness or financial problems, families need to come together and figure out a way to fix them. So we are really proud of the fact that we've had the opportunity as a department to work with you to fix some things. We have many more things to fix, and whoever becomes chair or members of the T Committee in the future, there will still be a laundry list of things to complete. And we will certainly as a department work endlessly to try to solve those problems with whoever comes after you. But there'll never be another you. And so we are happy that we had the opportunity. I am happy that I've had the opportunity in my short tenure in this job, but I am gratified that I've had a lifetime of opportunity to work with you in other venues and to continue working with you as controller. So on behalf of an entire staff of people at LADOT who love you dearly, wish you so well, we had some gifts that we wanted to give you to just say our congratulations and goodbyes so that you can remember us. Not that you could forget us, God forbid.
You really want me to remember you in the controller's office on the audit that I'm going to do?
Yeah. But you won't have a direct connect.
Well, I just want to comment too. I mean, and to my colleagues, these are the stalwart members who have been here, and that it really has been an honor and a privilege for the last 4 years to deal with an issue that no matter what economic status you are, it is impacted by transportation, and that there are different modes of transportation as discussed here, from walking to bicycling to taking other kinds of subways and buses to vehicles, and that but there are people in each of those areas, and that's what's been great about it, and that the department particularly has been willing to roll up their sleeves and be part of the solution in a very tough time where you don't control most of the activities that relate to traffic, and have to be responsive and to each of us and our unique demands that we have. But I know you will be in good hands, and it's very melancholy as to very excited about my next position, but being a council member is one of the best jobs in the world, and particularly working with the Department of Transportation. So I just was thrilled that you are there at Transportation, staying at Transportation, and going to make sure that we go forward. But all the staff have been incredibly helpful to me and an extended part of my family. So Tom, thank you.
Before you give her the gift, let me just say this. Having sat next to her for practically every meeting, maybe I missed 1 or 2 or 3 out of the entire 4 years, it didn't take me long to realize what a great leader she is, what a great consensus builder and coalition builder, and how open she is as a person. So when she decided to run for controller, it wasn't difficult for me to early endorse her, introduce her to people in my district, because I knew that if she were to win, we'd be better off in the controller's role, though we at the committee lose a great leader on this committee, and it's been a real pleasure to sit in these meetings and watch your leadership and how you've worked on, and I've heard her in her politics say, somebody said I should never be chair of transportation because that is a da-da-da-da-da. Bottom line is, in her 4 years in it, she's made great progress in one of the most difficult of situations and one of the most difficult cities in the nation. So we applaud you, Wendy, for everything you've done from a colleague standpoint.
Thank you. Thank you, yeah. My meetings, I think, are longer than budget some days, Mr. Parks, so.
But just to quickly add
Yes.
to what Rita did mention, we also want to thank you in the trust you gave the department, especially with all of the mess the Office of Parking Management was under and everything that was reorganized. You really did trust us, and we held us accountable, and we appreciate it, and especially our traffic officers and the faith and the trust you gave them. You went on stings in our taxi investigators, so truly you've not only been a great leader, Wendy, you've been a great friend to the department and to all the staff. So on behalf of everyone, we do want to thank you, and we have a recycled green parking meter that works. It's
That'll remind me of all my headaches, I know. And
the old kind. Wendy Gruhl, Chair of Transportation Committee, 2005-2009, has your CD2 on it, and it's color green, so we hope that sits somewhere well, and you can use it for meetings. People put 25 cents and time them. And
donate to the city's deficit, cause.
Get the key to get the money out.
Yes.
We're going to give you a key.
Actually, any screwdriver would work. And also, you truly, again, through this committee and your leadership, were able to change the landscape in LA, and this is just a picture of the kickoff meeting for the pay station, so we just wanted to provide this to you as well on behalf of DOT, and thank you for all the support.
Thank you.
Great.
And I think with that, the meeting is adjourned. Take a quick picture.